C. Anethanpal, and today's eminent resource person and past Central Council member C.A. J.Venkateswarlu garu, and past chairman of the branch, my dear FC members, senior professionals, and other members of the Visakhapatnam branch. A very good evening to all of you, and welcome to today's. We are eagerly waiting for this subject and from the past 2 months, and our Venkateswarlu garu is very kind enough and given this today this time. I welcome you once again, sir. So, members, you know very well the code of ethics is very, very important subject, and day in and day out, we have to follow in our personal life as well as in our profession. This is very, very necessary to stand in the profession for a quite long time. Because every professional ethics in the world requires a high tone, morality and integrity. It considers the rightnesses and wrongness of man's conduct. It is a source of justifiable pride to professionals to consider the great role members of his profession have played to maintain the human values in order to strengthen the social structure and finally the public interest. The code of ethics is a guiding force to the members of the profession, and today the professionals act totally on the principles enunciated in the code of ethics. It is not for getting the examination passed and acquiring the qualification, but it is required to be followed in line and spirit. So recently the Council of the Institute has also notified the advertisement guidelines of the Council, general guidelines to strengthen the impact of profession of the globalized economy by finding a level playing field in the changing scenario. My dear members, you know this code of ethics is continuously we have to follow as we have to complete the CPA hours. So like that today, you all know that our senior member, Sri J.Venkateswarlu garu, is very, very thorough on this code of ethics, because as a Central Council member for the 9 years, he has been entrusted this committee of code of ethics and disciplinary committee of this, especially after retiring 9 years also, he has been given another 5 years. This code of ethics subject has given to him. Really, we are very fortunate to have today C.A. J.Venkateswarlu garu today with us. Sir, I welcome you once again. Now, I request you to speak about our code of ethics of the schedule 1 and 2 to enable us to follow in our profession and strictly, and we will have to come up in the profession. Thank you, member. Now I request, before going this, I request our Anwar Sridhar garu, because everybody knows about J.Venkateswarlu garu, but as a formality, I request Anwar Sridhar garu to introduce J.Venkateswarlu garu to the August audience. Attention to Anwar Sridhar garu.
Good evening, dear members. It's my privilege to introduce stalwarts of the profession, C.A. J.Venkateswarlu garu, for today's evening session to deliberate on the important issues of class 1 and class 1st and 2nd schedule of the Charter Accounts Act. C.A. J.Venkateswarlu garu, he has been graduated in commerce from Andhra University in the year 1979. He is associate member of the ICA in July 1983 and a fellow member from October 1990, holding COP since 24th of August 1985. He is presently serving as serving the profession as partner of Messrs. JVSL and Associate Chartered Accountants with the head office at Hyderabad and branches at Vijayawada and Chennai. Professional experience. He is practicing as a chartered accountant, rendering professional services in the fields of accountancy, auditing, finance, taxation, banking, NBFCs, insurance, corporate laws, economic and commercial laws as statutory auditors, internal auditors, management, and tax consultants. He has held various positions in the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Prominent ones are served as an elected member of SIRC of ICA for 3 terms from 1998 to 2007. During this period, he held the positions of secretary in the year 2002-3 and vice chairman 2003 and 4, then as chairman 2004 to 5. He served as an elected member of the Central Council of ICA from Southern Region for 3 consecutive terms from 2007 to 10 till 2003 to 2013 to 2016. He was a member of the Appellate Authority under the Chartered Accountants Act 1949, member part-time of the Appellate Authority constituted under the Chartered Accountants Act 1949, appointed by the Government of India, the central government, effective from 1st March 2019. Directorships of PSUs and corporates. He was an independent director and chairman of the audit committee of Satyam Venture Engineering Services Private Limited, a subsidiary of Tech Mahindra Limited from March 2015 till date. Professional director on the board of management of the AP State Cooperative Bank Limited, a government of AP partnered scheduled bank from July 2015 to July 2019. He was a non-official part-time director on the board of India Infrastructure Finance Company Limited, a Government of India enterprise appointed by the Ministry of Finance, Government of India from March 2014 to September 2017. He was a non-official independent director on the board of IFCA Venture Capital Funds Limited, a wholly owned subsidiary of IFCA Limited, a Government of India enterprise from October 2017 to July 2019. He was an independent director and chairman of audit committee of Tech Mahindra BPO Limited, a subsidiary of Tech Mahindra Limited from March 2015 to March 2016. With these few words, I introduce the speaker to the August Gallery. Over to the speaker.
A very good evening, Chairman and Sridhar Garu, for that nice words. In fact, had I known that you are going to introduce me, I would have stopped you in the beginning itself, because I am known so much to all your Vizag members and other chartered accountants also, that I think you have picked it from somewhere in the net, so you are able to read it out so much. Once again, my best wishes and greetings to the members of Visakhapatnam branch. And thank you very much, Chairman sir, for calling me again to speak on the very same subject, which I think this is my third session. In the last 3 years, every year we started speaking on this. At the same time, I also compliment you for selecting this topic for discussion, despite the fact that many may not be interested. Looking at the importance of the subject, you are able to pick it up and making at least to those whoever are interested, because it is so much of important that one would come to know of it only when he receives a notice from the disciplinary directorate, which I wish no one should receive. But as a matter of fact, in fact, many of the members are getting these notices nowadays. Therefore, I compliment you for enlightening the members, at least on this very important subject. Again, my sincere apologies to the Vizag members that I have not been able to make it to your branch in the last 3 years, mainly because of COVID and other restrictions on travel. I am sure this year I will be definitely coming to Vizag, either on a personal note, and I will definitely take the opportunity to come and greet all the members at the branch. And once again, my sincere thanks to you. In the beginning itself, I am thanking you because I do not know at the end whether everybody will be there or not, for giving me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts on the subject Code of Ethics. For today's topic, I have picked up only some clauses, because if I have to speak on the entire Code of Ethics, volume 1, 2, and clauses for both the schedules, it needs more than 3-4 hours, and some parts of it may not be interesting, as well as it may be a little boring to the members. Therefore, I picked up those clauses which are of importance to the members in our day-to-day life, and also where the institute is receiving many complaints against various members under these clauses. And I also wish to spend some time on dealing with the practical cases which have come before the disciplinary committee and before the appellate authority, where I was sitting for 5 years in the disciplinary committee and for 3 years in the appellate authority. So I will take you through these specific clauses and some cases. Of course, I will not name the persons involved, but I will only deal with the facts therein. So kindly bear with me, and wherever you want, you can stop me. As such, the current thing will go for about 2 hours. And if you wish to take a break, Chairman sir, please let me know so that I'll stop for 5 minutes or so in the meanwhile. So we get into the proper subject now. Why Code of Ethics at all? What is that is so important for the professionals? It is, as you are all aware, it is very essential for commanding the respect and confidence of the regulators and public at large. See, today we are here because in the back of us, there is a regulatory bodies, and we enjoy certain privileges and command in the society, which is all because of our Code of Ethics and regulations that we follow strictly. Therefore, it is very essential for commanding our respect. And the conduct of our membership is regulated under our Act and the regulations framed thereunder, which you are all aware. And what is all about this code? It is nothing but actually a set of professional ethical principles and standards regulating our relationship with all those whom with we deal. That is our students, clients, employers, employees, and fellow members of the group. So these are the principles and standards that are set out for our following while dealing with the various segments of public at large. And what is about our Code of Ethics? Our institute has published, though it was formed in 1949, for the first time the Code of Ethics was brought into by way of a booklet way back in 1963, mainly comprising of ethical principles and a commentary on the clauses of first and second schedules to the CA Act 1949. Those of you who have not come across or who have not seen the first and second schedules to the CA Act, there are 2 schedules to our CA Act, which defines the do's and don'ts for the chartered accountants, particularly don'ts only. They don't say any do's, but they are these clauses prescribe what is that we should not be doing. By doing that, we will be held guilty. So these are the Code of Ethics was first time published in 1963, and thereafter it has undergone 12 revisions so far in the last almost 60 years. And the latest 12th edition was released in 1920 financial year. It is called 2019 edition. So therefore, why so many revisions, as you would understand, because in the last 60 years, the country has gone through so many changes, both in terms of laws as well as various practices that we and others are following. Therefore, even some of the clauses of these 2 schedules also have undergone changes. And in line with the International Code of Ethics of our own international body, IFAC, there is a body called International Ethical Standards Board, which releases the Code of Ethics at the international level. So for the last 2-3 editions, we have been trying to align our Code of Ethics with the International Code of Ethics. And right now, the 12th edition, which was released 2 years back, is almost full in line with the international ethics. And of course, a few changes have not been implemented because of the COVID restrictions. Those 2-3 new areas will be notified as and when things improve and the institute decides that they should be brought in. And what are the various domestic laws that are covered in this code of ethics? No, this code of ethics, again, we have to comply with our accounting and auditing standards, guidance notes, and other documents, various documents issued by ICI. I'm not dealing with the technical publications here, though technical publications are not mandatory, but in a way they are also technical guides which one can follow and say that, but otherwise the standards and guidance notes and are mandatory for all the members of the ICI to follow. And compliance with various other applicable laws like Companies Act, IT Act, Banking Regulation Act, etc. also lays down certain principles for the auditors to follow. So therefore, all these things, apart from the ICI Act, that is the CA Act, these other acts also we need to comply whenever we are dealing in those under those acts. So what is all about a misconduct under the Chartered Accountants Act, omissions and commissions and unethical practices? It is dealt in Chapter 5 of our Act. And what is a professional or other misconduct? It has been defined in Section 22 of our Act, which says that the expression professional or other misconduct shall be deemed to include any act or omission provided in any of the schedules. I mean, that is both first and second schedules, but nothing in this section shall be construed to limit or abridge in any way the power conferred on the director. That is, apart from these two schedules, whatever is mentioned in these two schedules, the power on the director discipline is not limited to only just to confine to these two schedules. He can extend to any other area wherever he finds that the member is at misconduct. So therefore, let us not conclude or confirm that only these 30-35 clauses given in these two schedules are applicable to the members. It is also, I mean, the other misconduct also, under other misconduct, the director discipline can inquire under other misconduct also. So in all my 9 years of council membership and subsequently 3 years also, I have noticed certain common reasons which are there for while filing the complaints against members. That is the reasons whatever I have observed, I am just trying to bring it here. Omissions and commissions noted in the audit reports or certificates. That is, whenever we issue audit report or certificates, there are some omissions and commissions. Like in some cases, I have noticed that the cut and paste, thanks to the computer, the cut and paste of the year sometimes, and sometimes some words are not corrected. They were just copied from the previous year. So, and there are certain mistakes and which are omissions in the nature, and some commissions also which should have been should not have been allowed to be there in the audit reports. Such kind of mistakes makes us to get the complaints against us. The second area is material mistakes or incorrect information in measurement, presentation, disclosure of financial statements. That is material mistakes. That is, if it is immaterial, nobody bothers. But if there are material amounts in the measurement, that is as per the accounting standards or measurement of the financial items, or presentation as per Schedule 3 of the Companies Act, or in the disclosure of financial statements, certain additional disclosures have to be made. In many of the cases, corporates, we find that there are mistakes in these financial statements. Though the primary responsibility is of the management to prepare these financial statements, since we are also certifying them to be true and correct, we have to be also careful in ensuring that these financial statements are complied with the respective accounting standards and with the company law wherever required. So therefore, even if there are mistakes in those financial statements, we are also responsible for those mistakes. Therefore, whenever the regulators find mistakes in those statements, they are booking complaints against the chartered accountants. This is one more area. The third area is non-compliance with accounting standards and auditing standards. In most of the cases, wherever the members are signing the balance sheets, the accounting standards, some of them are not complied or not disclosed properly. For example, the related party disclosures, as per our accounting standards, we need to disclose party-wise, but some of the cases our members are not disclosing. So therefore, any omissions or commissions in compliance with the auditing and accounting standards are also cause for the complaints that are coming against the members. And then the non-compliance with other applicable laws. Suppose if you are auditing the bank, a bank audit, you need to see whether the Banking Regulation Act rules and regulations have been complied with or not. And if you are doing the audit of a Cooperative Societies Act, you have to ensure that the rules applicable under the Cooperative Societies Act have to be complied. And MSMED Act, that is Micro and Small and Medium Enterprises Act. This again, though we don't do audit under this act, but this act prescribes disclosure of certain dues payable to the MSMED creditors in our balance sheet. So we need to ensure that all these related laws also which are applicable have to be complied with while preparing the financial statements and we do the audit. This is another area where many times the members were held guilty because of non-disclosure and non-compliance with the other applicable laws. And then FRRB findings. The FRRB is nothing but one of the board of our subcommittee of our council, which has been constituted about 20 years back, Financial Review Reporting Board, which picks up on an average every year about 100 corporate annual audited accounts and does a cold review. And thereafter, if there are any discrepancies or misconduct from the members' side, the action will be initiated by the disciplinary committee. So many of the times in FRRB, I was also there in this FRRB for 2 times, and we have noticed certain mistakes committed by the members in preparation of the financial statements and in giving the audit report. So all those mistakes also, they are at times, if they are serious, they are referred to the disciplinary committee, and which will initiate the action against the member. And if they are not serious, the FRRB would give an advisory to the member concerned and close the matter. And if the FRRB finds that at the management level of the corporate there are mistakes, it would also refer the matter to the concerned ministry, that is Ministry of Corporate Affairs, also for initiating appropriate action. Then the next area of getting complaints is complaints by regulators like Income Tax Department, Register of Companies, SEBI, banks, Reserve Bank of India, SFIO of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, CBI, ED, GST Department, Cooperative Audit Department. Most of these regulators have been filing the complaints against our members for our failure in discharging the duties under the respective laws, because the IT department, we certify so many things, including the important document of tax audit report and other reports under 10A, 10B, all those things. In fact, just now somebody called me to say that a charitable institution was issued a letter saying that the last year you have not filed the auditor's report 30 days before the due date for filing of the report. Therefore, we are denying the exemption to the trust. So like that, for any omissions and commissions in the reports issued by us, these regulators have been initiating action. Apart from some of the regulators like CBI and ED, they are initiating criminal action also under the Criminal Procedure Code. Simultaneously, they are also filing cases before the institute under a disciplinary mechanism. So we need to be extra careful while dealing with bigger corporates, particularly where such kind of disputes may come, and ultimately they are coming against the members. Disputes among the partners or directors of the auditee. That is, in many of the times, I have come across the disputes among the partners of the partnership firm or closely held directors, which leads to the filing a complaint against the auditor. Because we, as an auditor, we will try to be neutral to both the parties, but unfortunately, at some point or other, one of them will develop a grudge against the CA, and they file the cases. In fact, many of the cases I have seen arising from the disputes of the partners or directors are unfortunately booking the auditor, because there would be some mistake or other, and which he would not have bothered while signing to look into that. But unfortunately, such kind of cases are also increasing. So be careful always to keep adequate documentation whenever you are doing the audit of small entities where there are more than one owner, that is partners. So you need to be careful while dealing with such entities to take adequate care. For example, suppose if there are only 2 partners, and ensure that the annual financial statements are signed by both the partners. Though under the Partnership Act, only one is sufficient, managing partner, etc. In your own safety, ensure that all important documents are signed by both of them so that at a later date, you will not be put to trouble. Then the next area where frequent complaints are coming is disputes among the partners of the professional firms. This is also, of course, not many, but here and there I have come across where the partners of our own professional firms get into disputes and taking the matter to the institute. But many of the times the institute doesn't interfere in civil matters. But if it is any professional negligence or misconduct, other misconduct is arising on account of these professional disputes between the partners, institute would involve and hold the member guilty. But otherwise, if it is a civil dispute, then the institute would say that you go and settle the matter in the court of law. So we need to be careful while drafting our partnership firm deed, as well as subsequently also while dealing with other partners. We should never get into this kind of situation where somebody else will, our own partner will file a case against us. Then other misconduct alleged by aggrieved parties bringing disrepute to the profession. That is merely not only the professional misconduct, but we are liable for even other misconduct also. Other misconduct is other than professional conduct. So even in such cases, there is a clause called, we will read it when we go into that clause, that is bringing disrepute to the profession. So any party aggrieved with our behavior and misconduct in the public can book us under this other misconduct, bringing disrepute to the profession. So these are the areas where generally most of the complaints come from frequently. So now we move on to the first schedule to the Chartered Accountants Act 1949, which generally deals with, it has in fact 4 parts. We try to cover some of the important clauses where every one of us will come on day to day in our practice with these clauses. So therefore I have confined only some 5-6 clauses in this part. So this in fact, this entire first schedule deals with our relationship with our society members, and while accepting the work, what is that we need to follow, while sharing the income, all these things. It doesn't get into our real professional work. This deals with our professional surroundings and the situation where we are in. So this is the clause. Part 1 deals with for the members in practice. A chartered accountant in practice shall be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he involves in any of the clauses that we are going to read. That is the clause 2. I am going to clause 2, which talks of if you pay or allow or agree to pay or allow directly or indirectly any share, commission or brokerage in the fees or profits of your professional business to any person other than a CA, or a retired partner, or the legal representative of a deceased partner, or a member of any other professional body, or with such other persons having such qualifications as may be prescribed. That is, you should not pay any of your fee or income to any member other than a chartered accountant. The exceptions are only, that is one of you, even a retired partner can continue to receive some share from the firm, or a legal representative of a deceased partner, though he is not a member, legal representative of the deceased partner, or a member of any other professional body. Because any other professional body, you may ask, this has been brought in the light of these multidisciplinary partnership firms, which have been, the law has been amended, but the regulations and the rules have not been brought into force till date, though the law was amended way back in 2006, enabling us to join or float multidisciplinary partnership firms with designated professionals like company secretaries, ICWs, lawyers, engineers, etc. But so far in the last 15 years, not a serious attempt has been made to form this kind of multidisciplinary firms. In case if we are going to have that multidisciplinary firms, under that situation, we are allowed to pay our share our fees. Otherwise, strictly we cannot share our professional fee or income or a commission to any others other than the chartered accountants, or the exceptions are the retired partner or a legal representative of a deceased partner. The legal representative of a deceased partner will get the share only when the it is mentioned in the deed of partnership. Otherwise, she will not be eligible, she or he will not be eligible. But if there is a clause in the partnership deed that the legal representative of a partner is eligible for share of profit, then it is permitted under this act. It will not be a misconduct. So in all the cases of partnership firms, those of you who are interested may keep a clause that, in the case of a death or retirement of a partner, in case of a retirement, he will only be eligible to get for some time, but in the case of a death, his legal successor is eligible, provided it is permitted under the deed. Apart from this, the other two other areas where the first one I said, under multidisciplinary firms we can share. The second thing is, in certain states of the government in our country, some register of cooperative societies are eligible to get some share from some percentage of fee from the chartered accountant. That is particularly the cooperative societies, wherever they are appointing, they are eligible to get some share from the chartered accountant concerned. So that is permitted under the code of ethics. It doesn't amount to misconduct. Then we move on to clause 5, that is, while securing either through the services of a person who is not an employee of the CF or who is not his partner by means which are not open to a chartered accountant, any professional business. That is, we are not supposed to secure any work excepting through the services of our own employee or a chartered accountant or who is not a partner. Even if he is not a partner also, doesn't matter. But if he is a chartered accountant, we can secure some work through him by means which are not open to a CA. That is, we cannot solicit work excepting through these two routes in any other manner. That is, in fact, it is said that the work will follow due to the respect that we command. That is, so we should get the work. We should not go around the work and seek the things. And even while securing the work through employees or through chartered accountant or partners also, we should adhere to the other clause 6 and 7 of part 1 of first schedule, which talks of clause 6 is soliciting of work through advertisements and other things. That is, and the clause 7 is again confirmation with these advertisements and those areas. So even in these cases also, we need to keep in mind compliance with those other two clauses also, while securing the work through our employees or other CAs also. So now we move on to the clause 8, which is a very important clause, and till recently many of the complaints used to be under this clause, that is, accepting a position as auditor previously held by another CA or a certified auditor who has been issued a certificate under the restricted certificate rules without first communicating with him in writing. That is, whenever you are accepting a audit from another auditor which was done by another auditor, you have to communicate with him in writing. That is, not orally or anything. And as you will see in the next slide, this is applicable in all the audits of all cases, excepting the tax representation work, which we anyway is not an audit work. So this is applicable for all types of audits, including your bank branch statutory audits, concurrent audits, inspections, internal audits, or tax audits. Any kind of audit you call, it is applicable. That is, you have to communicate with the previous auditor who was doing the audit of that. Even in the case of a retirement by rotation also, under the Companies Act for the bigger companies, whenever an auditor is retiring and you are getting into that assignment, you should still communicate with the previous auditor. You can't say that it is a retirement, so I need not communicate. In the same way, even in a concurrent audits, where now mostly done by banks through online invitation, etc., it is always safe that you must go through and the process and communicate with the previous auditor. Whether you get a reply or not, it is different, but you should communicate with the previous auditor. Let us understand what are the rules applicable in this communication. Then the grounds for non-acceptance of audit to be stated clearly. That is, if the outgoing auditor is objecting for your accepting the appointment, he should write clear grounds under what you should not accept the audit. And non-compliance with section 139, 140 of the Companies Act, in case if the appointment is not in compliance with the Companies Act provisions, you should be careful while accepting that itself. And you should ensure that the Companies Act provisions are also in compliance while accepting the appointment. And non-payment of undisputed audit fee by auditee other than a SIC unit. That is in the case of the company which is still to pay some audit fee, undisputed audit fee to the outgoing auditor. The auditor has to give you a clearance. That is, when you are writing to the previous auditor, you should write two components. One, whether he has any professional or other objections for your accepting the appointment. Number two, whether you have whether the company owes any amount to the outgoing auditor towards undisputed audit fees. Here, one may note that it is only an undisputed audit fee which is subject matter. The other, in case of any consultancy fee or other fee, if there is anything due, that is not covered under this regulation. So therefore, and that too, audit fee should be undisputed. Suppose if there is some dispute, then again it gets into dispute. So that will also not be covered. So particularly in the case of corporates, there is no problem here, because whenever you raise a bill, the company also would account for it and it will be in the balance sheet current liabilities. But in the case of non-corporates, proprietary concerns and the smaller partnership firms, etc., sometimes they may not be accounting your bills as a accrued under accrual system. So in such cases, it will be difficult to prove that it is undisputed audit fee, because it will not be there in the books of financial statements of the auditee. So therefore, it is better that you ensure that before you sign off the balance sheet or annual audited accounts, that your fee is also properly accounted for. Then fee pending due to non-availability of previous auditor. Suppose if the fee could not be paid due to the non-availability of the previous auditor, such situation you will not be held responsible for pendency of the fees. But again, non-availability is a relatively very vague word. And suppose if there was a change in his address, he may not be available there, and the company may say that we tried, but he was not available. But therefore, reasonable efforts have to go in to trace him and pay off his fees. Otherwise, at least at the time of change, you should ensure that his whatever undisputed audit fee is there, that has to be paid. And course of action in case of a change of auditor. That is, as you are all aware, under the Companies Act, there is a course of action that the outgoing auditor, right now, under the new law, one is protected for 5 years. And in the meanwhile, if in these 5 years, if the company wants to change him, there is a big procedure. So that procedure has to be seen whether that has been complied with or not. It will come in the next class. But whatever change is happening, so you have to ensure that whether all the applicable laws have been complied with or not. Duty of retiring auditor to respond with the correct information. That is, whenever you are entering to the shoes of an auditor, the outgoing auditor has to respond to you with correct information, that why he is resigning, is there any reason, or is it only because of retirement by rotation, or if there is anything about the client which he has to share it with the incoming auditor, he should share it with the correct information. He should not mislead the incoming auditor, or he should not take that as an opportunity to tell something about the client which is not correct. And the incoming auditor can act after waiting for a reasonable time for a reply. That is, if you write to an outgoing auditor and he doesn't respond to you within a reasonable time, say 15 days, it's a very reasonable time, 2 weeks time, and you can proceed without waiting for his reply. Unless he gives you in some other mode that you have to wait. But in another case, you can proceed without waiting for his formal reply for your notice. And the positive evidence of delivery is required. That is, it is under this clause, what is required is that you should have written to and delivery was made to the outgoing auditor. That is, the delivery recognized in our code of ethics is only registered post acknowledgement due and or personal delivery, or acknowledgement by mail from the retiring auditor's official mail ID. That is, if you send it by the mail ID which is registered in the institute, even and an acknowledgement is there, even that is kind of a confirmation. And the last, the UDIN portal, the institute is trying to use this our UDIN portal for communicating these kind of communications also, but it is not yet been formalized. But they have kept this, recognized this in the code of ethics well in advance. So in other words, it has to be by a registered post acknowledgement due or a personal delivery. So we must ensure that we possess evidence of having dispatched the letter or having delivered the letter to the outgoing auditor. Certificate of posting, of course, now it is not in vogue. Earlier it used to be there, so it is not a conclusive proof of communication. In many cases, when I was in the council, we used to see, the certificate stamps are produced by the members. While they live in Hyderabad, there used to be a certificate of posting letter from Medak or Hyderabad, something like that. So all those things were not accepted. And the premises found locked. There is a new guidance available, that is, whenever you record in your in your notes that the previous auditor is not available or his office premises is locked. Now there is a guidance available that in such cases, if it is a genuine locked situation, you are exempted from serving it. But otherwise, in case if it is only your creation, then we will be held responsible for non-delivering that letter. And then the same thing, firm not found at the registered address, new guidance available. That is, if as per the institute registered address, if the firm is not in existence there, then you are not required to chase wherever they are. But if they are there, but not, you are not able to deliver or something, you need to be extra careful in such situations. The special audit under IT Act, other acts also, it is a healthy practice to communicate with statutory auditor. That is, though it is not a change of auditor or you are not entering into the shoes of another auditor, but still our code of ethics says that whenever, see, for example, sometimes income tax department appoints us as special auditors to go into a particular client, and sometimes NCLT in all disputed cases, they keep appointing us as a special auditors. So in all such situations also, it is better to communicate with the statutory auditor of the said auditee, so that you will come to know what is the important things about the client, which you should know while starting your audit. So it's always a healthy practice to communicate with the statutory auditor that, yes, I have been interested with this so-and-so audit. So you have anything to say or something like that, you can ask and he can respond to you. And communication in case of assignments by other professionals also is a healthy practice. Our code of ethics says that suppose you are accepting the internal audit of a company, which was done by earlier a non-CA, maybe some consulting firm. But even in such cases also, it is always a healthy practice that you should communicate with the previous agency, whichever was doing the thing. Even in the case of government audits or bank audits, particularly where you don't get much time for writing and awaiting for the reply, it is always at least you write on the acceptance letter that subject to any professional objections that may be received from the previous auditor. So normally for us, the bank branch audits are served through mail, and we are expected to commence the audit right on 1st April. So you will hardly have any time. But in all such cases also, our code of ethics tells us that at least on the while acknowledging, you make a small mention that it is subject to any professional objections that may be received from the previous auditor. But most of us are not writing today. Everyone is writing to the previous auditors by email, and they are responding. So even that is sufficient in the given circumstances. But in case if that is also not possible and you do not have time to wait for the previous auditor's consent, or if you have to wait for a reasonable time, the audit may not be there. So therefore, at least you make a note in your acceptance letter that in case of any objections, that have to be dealt separately. So now so the clause 8, most of the times our members used to not to write. At least in my knowledge, a few members have not written to the previous auditors. In the case of particularly the cooperative societies or charitable organizations or engineering colleges, etc., thinking that it's not a company. But as I said, it is applicable to all kinds of audits. And in those matters, whichever have come to my notice, after a year or so, the outgoing auditor, the auditor who was doing audit earlier, he filed a complaint, and then the matter went into up to the institute. All those nonsense was happening. So make sure that whenever you are accepting the audit, whether it is a proprietary tax audit also, or a cooperative society, or a charitable organization, or a company, or a partnership firm, ensure that you write to the previous auditor and keep evidence of delivering that letter to him. Whether he responds to you or not, keep a reasonable time for giving it to him. Don't send it on September 29th and do the tax audit on 30th September, because we need to give a reasonable time and wait for the his consent or objection, if any. So therefore, that is also questioned in many times, that client rushed to me on 29th September. There was no time, so I had to file the return on those dates. Don't try to shield the client under the lack of time, etc., because you will be into trouble. So you must give a sufficient reasonable time to the previous auditor to respond to you. And if a client comes to you on 29th September, thinking that you have to file the tax audit and you are issuing the tax audit report, that clearly brings out that you have not conducted the audit, because you are not expected to do the audit in less than 1 day time and file the return. So a lot of our weaknesses also will be thrown open by accepting these kind of audits at the last minute and issuing the report on the due dates. So please make sure that you don't get into unnecessary controversies and all these things, because unless you get the appointment letter, you cannot even start the audit. So unless you write to the previous auditor and wait for a reasonable time, you cannot accept the audit. So though it is a proprietary concern, etc., but still audit is an audit, and the code of ethics is a mandatory. So therefore, please be careful to communicate with the previous auditor whenever you are accepting a new audit which was handled earlier by another auditor. Now we move on to the clause 9, which is nothing but earlier section 225. Whenever there is a change of auditor, or in other words, other than the one who is retiring is reappointed, is appointed as the auditor. So currently the section 140 of the 2013 Act, if the procedure is not perfectly followed in compliance with section 140, then you should not accept the appointment. And how it is seen, the procedural requirements to be diligently adhered to. That is, you cannot simply rely on the verbal assurance given by the company or company secretary that all the procedures have been followed. You need to ensure that the company has sincerely and complied with the required provisions. That is, a special notice has to be issued at least 14 days before the general meeting to the outgoing auditor, informing him that somebody else is being proposed in his name, in his place. And the notice to that retiring auditor should have been sent by registered post acknowledgement due, and the replies received from the retiring auditor are also sent to all the members of the company, because they have to be circulated. These are all procedural matters. It is essentially of the company, but what is expected from you is to verify whether the company has complied with all the relevant section and procedures and formalities under the Companies Act. A mere certificate from the company will not absolve you from your responsibility. So therefore, it is very, very important that you you must take a copy of the board resolution and shareholders resolution where it was passed, and whether they have copy of the notice issued to the previous auditor and a copy of his reply. All these things you must take it from the company and keep it in your file, so that you can ensure that. And maybe along with these documents, you should get a letter from the company secretary or a managing director of the company concerned, confirming that all the requirements of section 140 of the current act have been followed and sincerely complied. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for you to justify that the company has complied with section 140 compliances. And even in our code says, do not rely on the verbal assurance given by the company about the compliance of Companies Act requirements. Verify and collect the documentary evidences. That only would save you in case of any verification at a future date. In the under the present act, of course, there is a limitation on the reappointment, on the appointment of another auditor within that first 5 years tenure of the current auditor. But there could be some situations where some of them are resigning for their personal reasons, etc., within that 5 years tenure. So in all such situations also, if it is a resignation also, there should be no problem. But still, you are communicating within the meaning of clause 8 with the previous auditor, continue under the this clause also. So it is both the clauses put together sometimes in the private companies, etc. In fact, in one of the case known to me, the juniors leaving the firm of the seniors have accepted some of their clients' audits, private limited audits, without even following the procedure properly and without even intimating to the previous auditor. Both the clauses they have violated, and the existing auditor who were their seniors went to the NCLT and got a order cancelling the appointment and so on. And they did not leave them there. They went to the institute also, filing a complaint against the new auditors, saying that they have violated both clause 8 and clause 9. And at some point, it was going on. I do not know what happened subsequently, but this is how we land in trouble. And in a few cases known to me, again, the auditors have accepted the audit of these charitable organizations, which were engineering colleges, etc., earlier done by somebody else, and the management deferred with the previous auditors and came, and these people have accepted. And after a year or so, the old auditor, after verifying the 10A, 10B filed in the income tax office, filed complaints against these people. So it went on like that. So it's always safe that don't expect that other fellow will simply forget and will not even follow us. They will always be following. So it is our duty to ensure that we are on the right compliance. Then we move on to clause 11. Which is nothing but when you are in full-time practice, you should not engage in any business or occupation other than the profession of chartered accountancy, unless permitted by the council so to engage. That is, council has permitted us to engage in some of the activities, general permission. Otherwise, you need to approach the institute with a specific request for allowing you to carry on the business. But there are some exceptions for these things. That is, the council has permitted us. These are the general permitted grants. That is permitted generally to be a director simpliciter in any company. That is, you can even be a promoter of a company, so long as you do not hold substantial interest in the said company, or you do not hold the managing director or a whole-time director position. You can always involve with any company as a simple director. That is simpliciter. They used a word in our code of ethics, a word called simpliciter. That is, you are a normal director without holding any position, whole-time director position, or without holding substantial interest, because substantial interest will come in the next slides. But even whenever you and your family members are holding substantial interest, though technically it is not a objection, but you cannot be its auditor when it comes to the thing. But anyway, now Companies Act 141 takes care of that, because you cannot be a shareholder with even 1% also. So as a director, promoter, or an independent director, you are allowed to be there. Even you need not inform the institute. But my suggestion is, it's always better to inform the institute even if you are joining as an independent director. Next, you can also, as I said, promote a company by being a subscriber to the memorandum and articles also, because it doesn't amount to yourself involving into business. But after forming the company, you should not go on adding managing directorship, chairmanship on a full-time basis, etc. That amounts to a business. then to be a director of the company, irrespective of whether the objects include areas which do not fall within the scope of the profession of CA. That's as I said, you can be director of any other company, whether it has a, like our own CA objects or anything, but you can be a director in any other company. And the council has granted permission generally for the following activities, that is employment under a CA in practice or firm. That is, a member can join with any other CA in practice as an employee, or a private tutorship. Of course, private tutorship, then now the weekly 25 hours, it is restricted to 25 hours per week. And acting as a surveyor or a loss assessor under the Insurance Act, we are permitted to do this. But you need to register earlier under what is that? Insurance authority used to be there, controller of insurance or something. But after this IRDA Act came in, now the IRDA gives us license for these surveyors and loss assessors. So they conduct some exam and admit the members. So the chartered accountancy qualification is eligible, but there you need to pass that exam and then undergo the training or articleship or something. So that is permitted by, approved by Insurance IRDA Act. So one has to comply with those requirements, but subject to complying with that, our institute has no problem for permitting you to take up these surveyorship or loss assessing activities. In fact, it is done by a very few CAs I know, and it is a very good area for practicing members also. But not many are there nowadays, because we are allowed again a few policies like loss of profit policy, or only some non-technical areas only we are given. So therefore, not much business, but there are some members who have been doing this as their profession. Then full-time, part-time employment in business concerns, provided one doesn't hold a substantial interest. That is, you can be in any employment in any business concern, provided you should not hold a substantial interest in that firm. Then you need to write to the institute and inform those things. Full or part-time employment in non-business concerns. That is, again, if you are in non-business concerns like charitable institution, if you are in kind of a management committee as a trustee or etc., you need not inform. But suppose again it should be a non-business charitable entities. Office of MD or whole-time director of a body corporate, provided he relatives doesn't hold substantial interest. That is, you can be an MD of a company where your relatives doesn't hold substantial interest. Substantial interest again is 20%, but this will not work now with the changed laws, that the moment you become a whole-time director of a body corporate, then it amounts to a business, you are carrying on a business, and you need to take the permission of the institute. Though it was there in our council general permitted guidelines, but this is not practical and not feasible. Then interest in family business concerns, that is, you can have some interest in your HUF and other business concerns, provided you are not engaged full-time in such businesses. That is, CA in practice shall not engage in any other profession business except with the permission of the council under regulation 190A, other than the things whatever council has already notified. Such notified areas are, that is, permitted areas are liquidator for a company's voluntary liquidation, or a trustee of a charitable institutions, or executor or administrator, arbitrator, receiver, advisor, or representative for costing, etc., appointed by the government, provided the appointment is not on a salary come full-time basis. That is, the government can appoint us on a, on some honorary positions like non-executive chairmen, etc., but that should not be on a salary come full-time basis. If it is on a whole-time basis, then it amounts to business. Therefore, we should be careful to see that how the appointment is made. If it is on a full-time basis, then you should inform the institute and take permission. Then automatically your COP will be converted into part-time COP, wherein you cannot perform any test functions. So these are the already covered. That is, director simpliciter means any ordinary director required only to attend the board meetings, no remuneration except sitting fee. This is permission is it is permitted, no specific permission is required. And a promoter director, no bar to be a promoter director and a simpliciter director. And then member in practice in a HUF doing business. That is, if you are a member in practice, also a member of your family HUF, which is doing in business, you can continue to be a member of that HUF so long as you don't spend much of your time or a substantial portion of your time in the business of that HUF. So you need to, if you are getting into like a karta and you are expected to spend time in the business of HUF, you have to inform the institute. But if the HUF funds are invested in business, provided member is not actively engaged in the management of the said business, so that is permitted. So long as you are not actively engaged in the business of that HUF, you are allowed to continue to be a member of that HUF doing business. And then now we move on to part 2 and 3 are not so important in the first schedule, because part 2 deals with for members in employment, and part 3 again general for both the members. So I move on to part 4, which is very, very important, having 2 clauses only. That is, a member of the institute, whether in practice or not, that is, it is applicable for both the members in practice or not in practice, shall be deemed to be guilty of other misconduct if he is held guilty for any civil or criminal court for an offence which is punishable with imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months. Suppose if a civil or criminal court held a member guilty with any under any offence, for any offence under which he is punishable with imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months, then automatically he will be deemed to have committed misconduct. And without further this thing, based on that court order, he will be held guilty under this clause 1 of part 4 of first schedule. And you may ask, what about the term exceeding 6 months? That will come in the second schedule. So they have not left it for any concession. So if the offence is punishable with a term which is not exceeding 6 months, then that will come under here. And the another important clause here is, in the opinion of the council, if the member is bringing disrepute to the profession or the institute as a result of his action, whether or not related to his professional work, he will be deemed to be held guilty under this clause. So under this clause, there are several decisions wherein the members were held guilty for their actions in the society, general society, like it starts with the family disputes and disputes with the partners, disputes in the public, civil criminal cases. So many cases are there where the complaints have come against the members for bringing under this clause, for bringing disrepute to the profession and unbecoming of a chartered accountant. These are the words used in the orders. So one has to be very careful while leading their personal life also, not to get caught under this kind of situations where which is very unfortunate to get caught under this clause. There are so many cases. Maybe I will deal with those facts of those cases after taking you through the remaining clauses also under this clause. So now we move on to second schedule, which deals with our real work that we are doing in our day-to-day life and in our work. So here, a chartered accountant in practice, again, the part 1 deals with those chartered accountants who are in practice shall be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he involves into any of these things. One is permitting his name or the name of his firm to be used in connection with an estimate of earnings contingent upon future transactions in a manner which may lead to the belief that he vouches for the accuracy of the forecast. In simple words, if you want me to tell about this class, it is nothing but certification of projected profitability statements or projected cash flow statements. We are not expected to, certify such kind of a statements for the accuracy of the forecast. That is, as the name indicates, it is a projected profitability statements. You should not say that subject to this thing, it is true and correct, etc. Because there is a clear guidance. You can sign them, but with a condition that you have to say from what sources you have prepared this document, or the best way is the above statement is prepared as per the information and made available to us by the SSC. or by the client. Or you can also extend what are the various sources of information that you have relied on in preparing those statements, and the basis of forecasts, major assumptions, etc. But you should not watch for accuracy of the forecast. But in real life, many of the cases, our members are simply certifying like a notaries, putting their rubber stamp and signing on the projected profitability statements. Please ensure to write that the above statement has been prepared as per the information and explanations given by the management. I mean, you are confining only preparation, that too based on the information and explanations given by the management. And do not use the words that the above statement is true and correct or to the best of my knowledge, etc. Please do not use those words. You can certify the projected profitability statements only as far as preparation is concerned. But in most of the cases, I know chairman is a past bank officer. Banks insist the chartered accountants to certify the projected profitability statements, but you must make sure that you do not sign it blindly without writing anything, or with writing true and fair, and the figures give a true and fair view. Those two things should be avoided, and you should best write that the above statement has been prepared as per the information, explanations, etc. given. Because we have come across many cases, the same banker, if the account is running into NPA, he will file a case against the member saying that he is the one who has certified, but it went wrong, so he should be held guilty. So very recently also we had a case before the appellate authority where we gave the benefit of doubt to the member, looking at the facts and circumstances of the case. But I mean, my appeal to all the members is that do not venture to just certify it blindly. There are other, there is one standard on assurance engagement 3400, which says or deals with the situation where we are to certify the prospective financial information. Because in the prospectuses, wherever we are signing, there are reports, prescribed reports, which defines on what is the work that we have done and how we are certifying the financial information. So in all such cases, we have to follow that standard on assurance engagement, SAE 3400. Even in the case of other projected profitability or loan applications also issued for loan applications, it has to be, there are templates in this SAE 3400, which the members can use it, particularly when you are certifying the bigger companies' projected profitability statements. Please ensure that you follow the certificate or report followed by that. Otherwise, we will be landing in trouble. And make sure that to read this guidance note on reports in compulsory company prospectuses, revised issued in January 19. This was in compliance with the Companies Act 2013. That is, whenever you are issuing for the projected profitability statements for publishing in the prospectus, etc., for the capital issuing companies, you need to follow these things. That is definitely you will follow, because there will be a merchant banker who will be guiding you. But in the case of smaller loan applications, do not venture to certify just like that without writing anything about, only mere preparation. That you are only preparer. Clause 4 of second schedule deals with whenever you are expressing an opinion on a financial statements of any business or enterprise in which you or your firm or a partner in this firm has a substantial interest. So you will find the word substantial interest. Whenever you or your partner or your family members have a substantial interest in a business entity, you are not expected to sign that financial statements or audit that entity. Then you may ask a question that what if my partner signs while my family holds? Even that is prohibited, because if you read this, which his firm or a partner in his firm has a substantial interest. So the substantial interest, in fact, has been defined to mean 20% of voting power or shareholding. And it has the same meaning as assigned in the regulations 1988. Member, his firm or his partner or his relative has substantial interest means, I mean, his relative again, your close relatives or family members. If all of you put together have a substantial interest, you should not be signing. I have come across some cases where the chartered accountants have some business interest in some of the smaller business partnership firms, etc., with their wife as a partner or a managing partner. Please don't do audit of such cases wherever your family members have more than 20% of interest. And if it is a company, definitely you can't do, because section 141 of the Companies Act, which we will see in the next class, holds you from accepting such positions. So the financial statements again cover both reports and certificates usually given after examination of accounts or financial statements. That is, financial statements doesn't mean that don't take it that only for the statutory audit, but even certificates like turnover certificate or a capital structure certificates. Any certificates given under your signatures also are covered in the definition of the financial statements. So you can't do even certification work for such kind of in such situations to the entities. The council also decided not to permit a CA employee to certify the financial statements of his employer company or a company under the same management, even though he holds COP. In any way, this condition will not apply, because now from 2004, a member who is holding a part-time employment cannot do practice. So here it's a case, a CA employee, that is, if you are holding an employment in a company and you cannot certify and holding COP also, you cannot be doing the same thing, because under both the situations, you can't hold the full-time COP wherein you can sign test functions while you are on the employment. So even that situation has to be corrected. But even under the same management, if by hook or crook, if you are holding a COP and certifying certain things, then in such situations, you can't do that for the companies under the same management or to the company in your own case. Because this I can share with you, a few years back, sometime in 2013-14, the institute has collected the data from the CBDT on members who are signing the tax audit reports without holding a proper COP. Thousands of members across the country were found to be signing more than 45 audits. And in some of the cases, in fact, even a few members came to me also seeking my help, where they were actually not holding COP at all, but still signing the tax audit reports. So all those cases have been sorted out, and some of them were punished. In fact, I have come across at least more than 7-8 cases where people have done some hundreds of tax audits while they were not entitled to do so many audits. And a few members were not holding COP at all, but still they were doing. And when I asked them, how can you do this? They started telling some sentiments, etc., that particular client had. In fact, one of the member was in bank employment, and he was jolly well signing a few cases every year tax audit. So this is how our members were behaving. So all these things have been captured here, but still it is the members who have to follow the rules. Then the council also did not permit the acceptance of an auditorship of a college if he is working in the same college on a part-time basis. Our members are permitted to take up teaching activities on a part-time basis without even the permission of the institute, so long as the number of hours that you take in an institution is not more than 25 hours a week. So in such cases, you cannot be the auditor of the same college where you are teaching on a part-time basis. And accept the auditorship of a trust where his partner is a trustee or employee of the said trust. That is, you cannot be the auditor of a trust where your partner is a trustee or employee of the said trust, because the 20% voting power will not work here, because in a charitable trust, there will be no voting or anything. So therefore, this has been exclusively brought out that whenever your partner is a trustee, you cannot be the auditor of the said trust. And the requirements of this clause are applicable to all attest functions. As I said, it covers all the situations of certificates, financial statements, audits, etc., where the member is a director, officer, or an employee in a company. In any case, in these three situations, 141(3)(b) of the Companies Act 2013 prohibits from auditing such company irrespective of holding substantial interest. That is, if one may try to argue that I have only 10% of holding, why not I be the auditor of that? But this Companies Act provision comes in our way not to accept any audit if you are a director, officer, or an employee in a company. Even though you don't hold even a 1% of the shares or a 1 share also, you cannot be the auditor. A director simply-sitter cannot be the auditor of that company. That is, as we have already discussed, that is, even though you don't hold any shares, you can't be the auditor. And these are all section 141(3)(d), (c), (f) under various situations where you cannot accept the audit. That is 141(3)(d)(1) talks of disqualifies a person if his relative or a partner holds any security or interest in the company or its subsidiary, holding, associate, all up to 1,000. That is, if any of your relative, defined relative, is holding just a security of 1 share of ₹1,000 each in a, not only in the main company, it's a subsidiary or a holding or associate company, you are barred from accepting the audit of that particular company. Next is 141(3)(c), which disqualifies a member from being auditor if he is a partner or who is in the employment or an officer or employee of the company. That is, if you can't be its auditor of the same company if your partner who is in the employment or an officer of employee of the company. So in all these situations, you cannot accept, even though you don't hold directly anything. 141(3)(f) disqualifies a person whose relative is a director or is in the employment of the KMP as a director or a KMP. That is, if your relative is a director on a board or is in the employment of the company as a director or a KMP, then you can't accept the audit of that company. But again, make sure that the relative, as defined in the Companies Act, that is, if you are figuring into that relationship relative as defined in the Companies Act only, this rule will come. Otherwise, this rule will not. This can be, if he is not a relative within the meaning of the Companies Act, then this rule will not apply. You can happily undertake the audit. But if it is the relationship is established under the Companies Act, then you cannot accept. Relative for this purpose would refer to the definition mentioned in AS 18, our accounting standard 18, and also more or less Companies Act relative definition and AS 18 are one and the same. Then a few other things, not to write the books of account for the clients where you are the auditor. I mean, this is a age-old restriction that we should not be writing the books of account. And in fact, I have come across a case where one big audit firm also had a consulting firm, and this consulting firm was doing several other services, including the book writing to that company, and the company got into trouble. The partners went into disputes, and one of the partner went to the institute saying that this auditor firm and its consulting firm both are doing all kinds of works together with the statutory audit and all those things. So in those situations, one should be careful that even if you have a consulting firm working from your own premises, don't have the same email ID or same staff, etc. Segregate them on record and do the things clearly, even if you are working within the same premises. So on record, it should be clear that you are not writing the books of account of the client where you are the auditor. Statutory auditor not to be the internal auditor. This is also age-old rule. And internal auditor not to be the tax auditor under IT Act or GST Act. In fact, this decision was taken when I was in the council, where after a long debate, the council opined that internal auditor is a part of the management, so he cannot at any stage undertake the audit of audit and attest function of like tax audit, GST audit, etc. So therefore, make sure that you don't accept the tax audit or GST under GST while you are the internal auditor of a company. Then 2 years cooling off period after completion of tenure as a director. That is, whenever you are a director in a company and after retirement, you need to wait for 2 years to accept the auditorship of that company. So you cannot accept, as soon as you retire from the board, you cannot accept the audit of such company. and members to satisfy whether appointment is as per the statute. That is, in some cases, even trust deed and articles of association makes a mention that only certain firms are eligible for accepting the for appointment as auditors. So, in case of any such restrictions are there, please make sure that we are meeting. In one of the case where I have come across, the articles says that the audit shall be assigned to only X number of a firm with X number of partners, etc. So in all such situations, or a joint audit, etc., those things, if there are anything in the memorandum articles restrictions, please ensure to look at them before accepting the appointment. Now, the next 4-5 clauses are very important. They all relate to the work actually that we perform. So please take it carefully. That is, clause 5 talks of a member deemed to be held guilty when he fails to disclose a material fact known to him, which is not disclosed in the financial statement, but disclosure of which is necessary in making such financial statement where he is concerned with that financial statement in a professional capacity. That is, if you fail to disclose a material fact known to you, which is not disclosed in the financial statement, but disclosure of which is necessary. So in this situation, you will be, one will be held guilty for not disclosing a material fact known to him. That is, you cannot say that I do not know this, this material fact. See, sometimes it may be very difficult to prove that if you have followed the auditing standards, all the auditing standards, you cannot miss out a material fact from disclosure in the financial statements. But suppose even if there is a fraud and there is a material failing to disclose, in such situations also you should be able to demonstrate that after your reasonable audit procedures, you could not find the failing to disclose a material misstatement. Therefore, it is very, very essential that how do you discharge your professional discharge functions is only by way of your documentation. That is, if you document all the required documents, collect all the evidences and keep it in your file, even if there is a fraud, etc., which could not be detected, you can still argue that you have done the audit as per the standards and could not detect the fraud, because not all frauds can be detected in an audit. But wherever you get a doubt, you should be able to extend your further audit procedures. Therefore, this clause is very important. That is, if you fail to disclose a material fact known to you which is not disclosed, for example, the this bad debts properly not provision is not made for proper for a bad debts which is not disclosed in the financial statement, or if there is a big contingent liability which is not disclosed, all these things would become failure to disclose the material facts. So we need to be careful in disclosing all the material facts known to you, or at least on record, which you are coming across. So the materiality, again, we need to refer to SA 320, that is our standard on auditing 320 materiality. It talks of various materiality levels that we have to fix while doing the audit. I mean, the smallest audits, we may not look at materiality, but in big corporate audits, we need to fix overall materiality at the financial statement level, at the item levels. All those things are been fully described in SA 320. And misstatements, including omissions, are expected to be material. That is, when a materiality would come, that is a failure to disclose in the, if you go back to the clause, it is a material fact known to you, which is in a financial statement, but disclosure of which is necessary. So therefore, when it would become a material misstatement, even if it is individually or in aggregate, expected to influence the economic decisions of the users taken on the basis of financial statements. That is, suppose if you have not disclosed or if the company has not provided for bad debts, which is a material item, then it influences the economic decisions of the financial statements. In such situations, the misstatements would come to play. Then judgments about materiality are to be made in the light of surrounding circumstances, size, nature of misstatement. That is, you need to you have to take a judgment of about the materiality. What are the various circumstances within which you are working? Those things will have to be taken care while fixing the materiality, etc. And again, financial statements cover both reports and certificates. As we said in class 4, that all the financial statements, wherever they come, it would cover both reports and certificates also. Then class 6, in the previous class, we have seen failing to disclose a material fact known to you. In class 6, it talks of fails to report a material misstatement known to him to appear in a financial statement. That is, here, if you fail to report a material misstatement, which is known to you, to appear in a financial statement with which he is concerned in a professional capacity. Therefore, if you are the auditor, and if you fail to report a material misstatement, say suppose turnover is inflated or stocks are inflated, which is nothing but a material misstatement, and which is known to you and appearing in the financial statement. So exactly almost similar. There it is a failing to disclose a material fact, but here it is a failing to report a material misstatement, which is as important as class 5. For in generally in all the balance sheets, wherever the complaints are coming against the members on the professional work done, so this is all these clauses will be invoked, where they say that in certain places the member failed to report a material fact, and in certain places the member failed to report a material misstatement, etc. So all these clauses, one needs to be very careful and keep adequate documentation to display that you have done the audit as per your standards, and you cannot be said that you have failed to report a material misstatement. Then class 7 talks of does not exercise due diligence or is grossly negligent in the conduct of his professional duties. Invariably, whenever a complaint comes against our professional work, then they invoke this clause, does not exercise due diligence or is grossly negligent. I mean, though it is a simply worded, it is a very vital clause in all the cases, which is usually gets attracted whenever there is a complaint on our professional work. And diligence, the word diligence has been said in our commentary, that diligence encompasses the responsibility to act in accordance with the requirements of an assignment carefully and thoroughly. That is, what is meant by diligence means that is, you are expected to discharge your functions in accordance with the requirements of an assignment carefully and thoroughly. That you have to comply with the law wherever required according to the standards, and in all material aspects you are expected to exercise the due diligence, and you should not be grossly negligent in the conduct of your professional duties. Then what constitutes a professional misconduct? Again, various courts have dealt in the last 75 years. Almost several courts have dealt in this on the professional misconduct and the gross professional negligence, etc. The professional misconduct on the part of a technical professional cannot be found merely on a finding of bare non-performance of a duty or some default in performing it. That is, if you have returned to the debtors or creditors, but they have not responded to you, and simply you cannot be held responsible for mistakes in the debtors or creditors, something like that. So the professional misconduct should in fact be visible, that you have not performed the audit procedures properly, and therefore the misconduct has happened. So misconduct implies failure to act honestly and reasonably, either according to the ordinary and natural standard or according to a particular profession. So that is, if you have failed to act according to the ordinary and natural standards or according to a particular profession, then it amounts to misconduct. Otherwise, mere not writing or writing but not getting a confirmation cannot be attributed as a professional misconduct. Term of fairly wide import, but generally speaking, it implies fairly serious cases of misconduct or gross negligence. Gross negligence per se would not amount to gross negligence. But be this all explanation or a commentary as it may, but in real life, I'm telling you, in the cases of invoking these 5, 6, 7, all these clauses, the institute or the disciplinary committee, with all respects, they simply hold us guilty The moment they look at a failure on your part in discharging the functions as per these clauses, they don't look at whether it is a negligence or a simple negligence or a gross negligence, and they don't see whether it is a really misconduct, whether you have discharged all your duties, etc. Because these are all only for understanding, but in real situation, a member is held guilty the moment there is a mistake, whether it is done intentionally or unintentionally. In some of the instances of the gross negligence, that is failure to verify the securities, failure to reconcile bank balances, failure to check cash balances, issuing a false certificate regarding maintenance of records. All these things are instances of gross negligence where members are held guilty. Then clause 8, again another thing which says that if you fail to obtain sufficient information which is necessary for expression of an opinion, or its exceptions are sufficiently material to negate the expression of an opinion. In clause 5 and 6, you have seen if you have failed to report a material fact or failed to report a material misstatement, you are held guilty. Here, if you fail to obtain sufficient information, that is, if you have not obtained the required information before expressing an opinion, then one will be held guilty of misconduct. So, I mean, unless you do the full audit, you cannot express an opinion. So, or unless you collect the data and analyze and perform such tests as you require, like analytical procedures or control tests, etc., you should not jump and conclude your audit report. So that is how this clause is very important, that you should possess the sufficient information before expressing your opinion. That is, in all respects, you should be thorough with the information, whatever you are going to certify. If a member did not get full information for expression of an unmodified opinion, the auditor should clearly express his disclaimer. That is, you have not received, say, certain vital information from the company, then you have to express it in your opinion that you have not received so and so information, therefore you are modifying your report. Again, the modifications are in 3 types, like qualification, disclaimer, or adverse opinion, etc., which you need to follow that. But simply by merely saying that I have not received the debtors confirmations or creditors confirmation, it will not absolve you from this clause, unless you make out clearly, because normally we see in the notes to accounts that the balances in debtors, creditors accounts are subject to confirmation. So you cannot take it that you have discharged your professional duties by writing that. So wherever you are not able to get sufficient information to express your opinion, you need to modify your opinion, that is your report. Then we move on to clause 9, which again is if you fail to invite attention to any material departure from the generally accepted procedure of audit. That is, you are expected to follow the various standards on auditing notified by issued by the ICAI and notified under the Companies Act, which are mandatory for all of us. And whenever there is a material departure from a generally accepted audit procedure or an audit standard applicable to the circumstances, you have to invite attention for such departure. That is, in the given circumstances, we could not do so and so. Therefore, it is my opinion is subject to compliance with that. Otherwise, you will be failing to invite attention would attract this clause 9. So it depends on the facts and circumstances of each case. And definitely ICAI has given enough guidance by way of our EQC engagement quality control standards, statements, guidance notes, so many things are there. So whenever you need some guidance, you can rely on these ICAI documents and express that the procedure has not been followed as required under so and so guidance note. So if you fail to invite the attention, then that is it amounts to a misconduct under clause 9. So audit of listed companies, you are expected to have a peer review certificate, then the firm registration number and membership number have to be quoted in all our reports. And the UDIN has to be quoted again from 1st July 2019. And no, UDIN, of course, you can obtain now within 60 days from the date of signing. But make sure that in all your companies' cases that you take it on the same day of your signing, because the company will immediately issue the document, maybe for limited purposes or for issuing to the shareholders. So they will not wait for 60 days till you get the UDIN number. So it is always advisable and safe that you get it on the same day and then put the number and sign it, so that you will not be under the risk of not quoting the thing. But even under the permitted thing also, you need to, within 60 days, you have to inform the client that you have obtained the UDIN for the report signed on so and so date, and request him to add this UDIN number wherever you have signed. So that is the company's job to affix the UDIN number at various places where you have signed. So, but that is, while it is the company's responsibility, our responsibility also is better you take it on the same day and put it below your name, so that you will not be, I mean, the document cannot go without the UDIN number. Suppose, for example, today you have signed the balance sheet and the company issues, it's a private limited company, tomorrow itself they will issue for to the shareholders for AGM, and without UDIN number it will go. And somebody can say that the auditor has signed without UDIN number. You can say that, yeah, I have still 60 days time to obtain UDIN number. To avoid all those claims and counter claims, it is better you obtain the UDIN on the very same day. And the second schedule, part 2, which is again very important. I mean, defalcates or embezzles monies received in his professional capacity. That is, whenever we receive money or we hold money and we defalcate or embezzle that money in our professional capacity, then it amounts to misconduct under the rules. Then second schedule, part 3, again other misconduct. That is, again, in the first schedule, we have covered the civil or criminal cases where the members are held guilty for a punishable term which is less than 6 months. Here it is exceeding 6 months. This would come under this thing. And this is all about my presentation. I have some case laws now where we can. I'll take you through some of the cases which have been decided or which are in my knowledge under various clauses. Of course, as I said, I'll not be speaking out the names of the companies or the auditors. Pardon me for that, but you can see them in volume 3 of our Code of Ethics, where you have the full reports of various cases decided by the disciplinary committee. So now let's move on to clause 8 and 9 of part 1 of first schedule, that is communicating with the previous auditor. Some instances where the members were held guilty. One member pleaded that he was not aware of section 225 of the Companies Act requirements while accepting the appointment from another auditor. And he did not communicate with the previous auditor, saying that I never knew this. See, not knowing the law applicable to you is not an excuse for giving any lenient view. So he was held guilty for under both the clauses. And then it is mandatory for all types of audits. In my own knowledge, from my own city, I have come across a case where concurrent auditor of an outgoing concurrent auditor filed a case against the incoming concurrent auditor for not communicating with the thing. And it was after a long debate, the institute held him guilty, because though it is a very immaterial fact, but technically he did not communicate, and he has admitted that he has not communicated, though it was picked up by the bank, and bank only called and it was empaneled, allotted, everything is there, but the law requires you to communicate with the previous auditor. Why you have not communicated? So then and also whenever you are communicating, as we discussed, you need to make a mention on specifically write whether any undisputed audit fee is outstanding. If that outstanding is there, either you have to take steps to clear that amount, or the company has to clear it. Or if the outgoing auditor objects for you, you cannot accept the appointment. And to wait for a reasonable time, that is also a must, because you cannot issue the letter today and deliver it in the office of the auditor. So long as he is willing to acknowledge you on the same day, that's fine. But if he is not willing to acknowledge it on the same day, giving a no objection, you need to wait for the thing. And communication by ordinary post, there were so many cases in the earlier, which all the institutes said nothing, we will not accept these things. In fact, some of our members, with all respects again, they used to create this certificate of posting evidences, which were all rejected by the institute outright. And not possessing the evidence for sending the communication is not tenable. You can't say that I don't have evidence. See, you might have sent it by a registered post, but if you don't have any evidence of having dispatched it by a registered post, then you are as good as you have not sent the letter. So therefore, it's always, you should keep the evidence of having dispatched it. Then special audit acceptance, as I said, it is a healthy practice to communicate with the previous and the current auditors also, so that they can tell you something what is going on within the company, good or bad about the thing. And nowadays, the register of companies and the other regulatory bodies are keeping a watch on our movement and our resignations also. The ADT forms are not accepted in the straight through process. Many of the members may be aware. Particularly in the case of listed companies and large companies, they are asking the reasons for why the auditor is resigning within the stipulated period of 5 years. That is there, and SEBI has, of course, listed out certain situations when an auditor can resign, and in that SEBI has clearly categorically said that due to professional reasons or preoccupations, etc., are not acceptable. And they have also laid down, and in a case of listed companies, when an auditor can resign, and suppose if he is resigning at the end of the quarter, he has to complete the limited review of that quarter, and then only he is permitted to leave. So all those things are very much in vogue. So wherever members are doing the big audits, be careful not to resign and fight with the company for your own cause and protection. And some of the cases where clause 11, where that is you are engaging in any business or other occupation like holding directorships, etc., some interesting cases are there. In one of the company, he became a whole-time director and continued to also float 7 other companies, and was there throughout as a managing director without informing the institute. And some of his victims have complained to the institute, and after proper deliberation, he was held guilty. A CA floated a real estate company and got some agreements executed with one of his clients. That is, he entered into business deal with one of his clients, and he was holding more than 20% of shares and also designated as a director of finance. So after the complaint coming from the one of the victim, he was held guilty under clause 11. A CA held the position of an auditor of a company while he was designated chairman of the same company for 20 years. So look at the activities of our members. He was the chairman of that company and also auditor for more than 20 years. And he was also holding substantial interest in the equity of the company. Later, he filed a case against the company for recovery of his own loans. He gave a loan also to the company, and for recovery of that, he filed a case against his own company. And so the whole box was opened, and he was guilty of misconduct. In another case, a CA floated 73 bogus companies with the help of his son and daughter, and forging the signatures of auditor also, he forged in some of the companies for the audit reports. And he himself was on the board of 7 companies, And subsequently all came out, and he was held guilty, and his name was removed. In another CA firm where I was aware, and matter was before me, one partner, as soon as he joined in it was a very old firm, he started creating trouble throughout his tenure, and the matter went from institute to high court to Supreme Court, up to Supreme Court, and he was going on creating litigations to the other partners, and he in fact held back the bank accounts. He has frozen those bank accounts for 2-3 years. The fees was coming and depositing in the bank account, but the firm was not able to encash and pay the salaries also. The remaining partners used to bring in personal funds and meet the expenses, and made the firm to survive, because it is some more than a few decades of its existence. And another CA involved in filing bogus IT returns on fictitious names for more than 3 years, filed bogus TDS certificates and claimed refunds and encashed from the banks, and suddenly he disappeared from the country itself. Of course, now it is not possible with all this electronic filing and electronic TDS certificates, but these are all the cases which were happening when the physical mode TDS certificates were there. In fact, this case came up before me when I was in the disciplinary committee, and we did not find the member in India itself. Even to serve the notice also, he was not available. So he vanished from the country itself. Then a CA was involved in price rigging of a listed company, because these cases comes from SEBI, where they hold the chartered accountants as if they were involved in price rigging or price fixing of the company, or some insider trading, etc. So whenever you are associated with any listed companies, you need to be very careful. Of course, under the SEBI, these things we cannot be even buying or selling shares. Even our family members, we need to give data. And even if you try to do it, the company secretary of that company will come to know the moment you buy. It will flash in his system that so-and-so related party insider has bought the shares. CA took money from a new client and did not return in the assured time, a reasonable time, and then the party filed a case against the member, and he was held guilty. Because when you entertain, financial relationship with your own clients, these are the problems that one may come across. So then another interesting case where I have also come across is a member was, it was a partnership firm, was having the auditors for the last 20 years, same audit firm. And whenever there was a change in the constitution of the firm, one of the partner, managing partner or whoever it is, he used to bring all signed partnership deed by all the partners and take the auditor's signature as a witness in the Form 1 or whatever under the partnership rules, and filed it with the register of firms. That was going on almost in every 2-3 years. There were some changes or others. So the partner who was signing every year or whenever the occasion comes, signed it innocently, believing that it is a respected family business and clients. So ultimately, it was found that on some disputes between the family members, it was noticed that one of the family member died 4 years back, but he was continued to be shown as a partner in the amended deed of partnership. So this partner has signed it, but then subsequently it became a big dispute, and they went to the register of firms. While the register of firms annulled the form, whatever that was filed, he did not leave the matter there. He went to the institute filing a complaint against the member. So now, after a long debate, institute could not accept the member's plea that he was signing it on the confidence that on the client who was running with them for the last 20 years. The institute disciplinary committee clearly said that you cannot sign any paper on the belief that it is from your 20-year-old client or 30-year-old client. Every time you are signing, you are expected to check the veracity of the form and the contents of the form. You cannot say that I have signed it based on the belief. And the member was held guilty. So in the similar way, there are so many cases coming up in the ROC issue. Whenever we are certifying certain forms like director induction, etc., there are many instances where our members are signing based on the belief that it has actually taken place, and ultimately it was found to be bogus or in disputes where the members were were unaware and caught guilty of misconduct. In another case, the auditor has signed in all three balance sheets, one for the owner, one for the tax audit purpose, and one for the GST audit, not GST, VAT or something old, this thing. Luckily, he did not sign all the three. He signed one. He made two other auditors to sign the other two. But then there was a raid on the member sales tax department. And in fact, the auditor also was taken into custody. But all these things were happened at the involvement of the members, these things. And non-compliance with the accounting standards, some serious matters have come up, particularly the related party disclosure. Though it is a related party disclosure standard, still in the beginning it was not there, but sometime later the institute has clarified in 2012 or so that party-wise disclosure has to be made. So therefore, in some of the balance sheets, they found that they have not given the party-wise disclosure of all the related parties. They gave it under a group, which is not permitted. Therefore, it has to be taken seriously. And issuing certificates on capital contribution or on fixed assets acquisition, many cases were held guilty for where the members could not prove any evidence. In fact, in two cases, at least to my knowledge, the CBI has filed, while taking them as approvers in the criminal case, they have also filed a complaint before the institute saying that the members have not maintained or the mistakes in the capital contribution. In fact, the capital has not come really. In one case where all these cases will come from the bankers. The bankers, while issuing the sanction letters, they will put n number of conditions, but they conveniently ignore. Sir, though you were the chair once upon a time in the bank, I am still there to say that, because I have come across many instances where the banks have not complied with their own sanction terms, but ultimately held the member responsible for issuing the capital structure certificates, etc. In one such case, which is again in my knowledge, a chartered accountant was called upon to issue a certificate for the share application money brought by the company during the year. It was in the middle of the year. So this is about 15 years back. So the chartered accountant verified and conveniently took a ledger extract of that share application money and certified that the company has received X amount of share application money. And at the end of the year, part of the share application money was returned, and in the balance sheet figure is less than what the certificate given during the year. So the banker became very angry and then filed a complaint against the CA. So the CA replied saying that the share application money was anytime can be returned by the board. It is within their powers. So on the date of my certificate, it was there. So luckily it was all brought from other group companies through bank channels. So he was able to produce the evidence that he discharged his function correctly by taking the evidences. He took an appointment letter, though he was not the statutory auditor. He took an engagement letter and he collected the ledger extracts on that day. And the company luckily gave him on that day. So otherwise he would have been held guilty. But in other cases where the capital structure certificates, etc., members are getting caught, they don't really keep evidences of what the company had on that. And initially, everything will come in the cash in those days. Now, of course, the cash flow must have been arrested in these newly formed companies also. Some till about 10 years back, all the initial first 2-3 years, even share capital loans, everything used to come in cash, and the member never used to keep evidence of those receipts. So that's how the capital structure or fixed asset certificates were found to be incorrect, and members were held guilty. And in another case, filing of fictitious tax audit reports and returns and claiming refunds and encashing. In fact, when the DC disciplinary committee awarded a 10 years removal of name, the appellate authority removed him for the lifetime. So that is the seriousness of the cases. And many of the cases, the GST department also is actively filing the cases where several members were found to be issuing GST certificates or input credit, all these things. Of course, many of the members may be watching in the media also. Almost in last 2 months back in Delhi, there was a big arrest, and many of them, a few members were arrested, and the members have created all kinds of demos, etc. Companies Act, again we covered. Again, one more area where I have come across is that whenever we are certifying certain turnovers or tax audit deductions, etc., 10A, 10B deductions, etc., if the contents are not correct, then the department is taking it seriously and filing the complaints. Issuing certificates for turnover, certificates of turnover for tendering purposes. Suppose if the public sector companies and sometimes the government departments keeps calling for certificates supported by the chartered accountant certificates on the turnover matters. So we should be careful to certify the correct turnover. Otherwise, the opponents of that tenderer are filing complaints that these fellows' certificates are bogus, and the members were held guilty. And CBI and ACB of late have made it a point that wherever they come across fraud by the management, they are believing that it is invariably the chartered accountant is also a party in the fraud, and they are catching hold of the filing complaints against the CAs. And in a very interesting matter, very proprietary concern, he borrowed a loan from the bank and he seems to be a litigant. So he filed a case against the bank saying that the banker has not complied and helped him in timely release, etc. And he made a claim for damages from the bank. So the auditor innocently took that as if it is the decided claim and shown the banker as a debtor in the balance sheet. So the balance sheet has gone to the banker, and the banker became wild and filed a case against the member, saying that this fellow, merely based on filing a complaint, if the auditor can take it as a law and show the banker as a debtor, there is nothing more is required. So he was held guilty in that. Sometimes in a big companies, some of the members are getting involved in some kind of a fraudulent issuing of certificates. In one case, where a member was given some work, which seems to be only on paper. He claimed the bill and withdrew he got the payment. After a few months or so, there was a change at the top level management, and they noticed that this member was paid some huge amount without actually delivering any service as per the appointment. So the member could not answer it properly, and ultimately he was held guilty. So we should be careful of having idea that it is not the date on which you obtain the appointment and walk away. Even at the subsequent date also, if there are any mistakes or in our work delivered, we can be caught. And then some of the other misconduct where members were held guilty, issuing service certificates knowing them to be false. That is, you cannot issue a service certificates to any of your staff or etc. which are known to be false. And retention of books of and documents of the client unauthorizedly. That is, we cannot hold the books of the client saying that he has not paid the fees. If he has not paid the fees, you have to go to a court of law and recover the fee. You can't unauthorizedly hold the books of the client. And assistant's gross negligence, it amounts to our gross negligence also, because you are relying on your own assistant's work. So you have to see that your assistant also works correctly, and you cannot simply say that I have relied on my assistant and I cannot be held guilty. And fabrication or window dressing of figures, That is again, in some cases, when the member was silent for certain fabrication or window dressing of the accounts by the management, he was not only held professionally negligent, but even under other misconduct also he was held guilty. And misrepresentation of experience, again, in some of the professional CVs, we write misrepresentation of our experience. So in a few cases, the members were held guilty for furnishing incorrect experiences. Misuse of audit assistants for some other non-professional works, the articled assistants, etc. In old cases, they were used for some other purposes. So they went to the institute and the member was held guilty. And misappropriation of ICI funds at the branch and the regional office level, in two such instances, the members concerned were held guilty. And possession of government records illegally. Again, as we said in the previous year, whether it is private client or government client, for mere non-receipt of fee, we cannot hold their records, etc. Use of abusive language with client partners, etc. Even in such situations also, some partners or some clients recorded the things and then made the complaint and put all those things on record. Claiming bogus forged bills for reimbursement to the banks and other government departments towards reimbursement of traveling expenses. Creation of fake certificates for incorporation. This also I have come across some, of course, it is more than 20 years back when there were so many controls. A member has created a fake certificate of incorporation of a company and took the money from the client. Later on, when they tried to know, it was not even registered. So they filed a complaint and the member was held guilty. Member in employment declaring that he is in practice. In 2004 council decision, as we discussed, one cannot do practice while holding only part-time COP. He can do only consulting work. He cannot do any attest work. And there were a few cases of where a member has written a book on black money, how to convert into white money. So the member was held guilty, and even high courts have confirmed the guilty things, and one should not be writing such a books which would encourage the members to follow these things. In fact, now some cases is going on where two members during this demonetization period, not from our place, but from some other parts of the country, have given a TV interviews in a sting operation where they said that the whole demonetization scheme is a waste and it can be used by the intelligent people. So all of them were caught and complaints were charged. And even violation of PCAOB rules, it's bringing disrepute to the profession. Signing a CA after removal of name by ICI, retirement from the firm. In a few cases, some members have signed after removal of their name by the institute also, bringing disrepute to the profession. All these things are, though not professional misconducts, but they are held as bringing disrepute to the profession, and the member was held as guilty under class 2 of part 4 of the first schedule, where for other misconduct it is held guilty. And in fact, in some of the cases, the members in their personal life did some mischiefs, which were their counterparts, their spouses or family members have filed before the institute, and they were held guilty. And there are many other cases which have been passing through, but still complaints are increasing day by day. On an average, I think now the institute is getting more than 250 complaints in a year. That is almost like a 250 working days and 250 complaints are coming. And please don't think that these are all applicable for bigger audits only. The code of ethics is applicable to everybody from the yesterday's member to anybody at the retiring stage. Whenever you are performing the professional functions, the code of ethics has to be complied. And I know how difficult it is for a member from the day he gets a notice, however senior member he is, it is not that easy to bear that inconvenience till he is absolved of the case. it will be haunting him. And nowadays, I think the institute is linking our data with the our misconduct or any decisions that comes against us to the other data like C&AG data, etc. In C&AG applications, you need to fill up a column whether have you ever been held guilty in the last 5 years. If so, what is the punishment awarded? So if you are just even held guilty, even though you have not been awarded any punishment but only reprimanded, but still it amounts to held guilty. So therefore, let us not give any opportunity or any chance to anybody to file a complaint against us. And even if he files a complaint against us, let us prove our sincerity and discharge our functions and display our discharge of functions to the last point and come out safely. So this is all. I mean, I could take out some important clauses. We can go on speaking for days together, but I will stop it here, and I'm open to take any questions from the members or any clarifications on whatever I have spoken or I have not spoken. Also, the other clauses also I can answer. So I'll stop it here, sir. Thank you, Chairman, once again.
Thank you, sir. Sir, for the past more than 2 hours, continuous, just like robot that you have spoken, sir. Really
No.
wonderful, sir. Even you are not taken, you are told that you want to take 5 minutes or 2 minutes break, but you are not taking a break at all and continuously, because kudos to your patience and continuity.
No, that is the advantage of speaking on a computer. Because if it is physical, definitely people will not sit for 2 hours for this subject because I don't see your faces when I was speaking. So I'm happy that at least I made all of you to watch for or sit before the computers. So that's all I can say.
Sir, members, you want any clarification or any doubt, please unmute yourself and ask our.
Since there are only
Venkateswarlu
24
garu.
members on the screen now, feel free to raise any question, and whatever we speak here, take it on a positive sense. Because whatever cases that I have revealed to you without mentioning the names, these are all not hypothetical or created cases. They are all real cases. You can go through it in the Code of Ethics, Volume 3, where all the cases, gist of cases delivered so far are there. Even in Appellate Authority also site, you find orders of the Appellate Authority. On a random basis, you can pick up and try to read. And some of the cases, when we really look at the members' behavior, I feel really very unfortunate that our members get into so much of unethical behavior. I'm very frank with you. Recently, we disposed one appeal in the Appellate Authority, where the son-in-law went on defrauding his own father-in-law and mother-in-law. Right? He took away literally his property and he made them to stand on the roads. So, I mean, even to hear that, we feel very ashamed of that. So we confirmed whatever that said, punishment is different, but where are we heading? We are all professional, educated, chartered accountants. See, I can understand if you are helping the client by not insisting every compliance, but cheating your own in-laws, and where his wife is also a party with him. So that is the kind of level at which our people are. I mean, again, please don't take it that I mean not all members. Even one in 1 lakh members, it brings so much of disreputation to the entire profession.
Entire fraternity.
So I'll.
Ramchandra, you want to ask some questions, sir? Ramchandra.
లేదు సార్ సార్ ఎవరు కనబట్టలేదు అన్నారని నేను కెమెరా ఆన్ చేశాను.
చెప్పండి రామచంద్ర గారు.
సార్ you are authority on the code of conduct and ethics, sir. So nothing to ask. You so vividly, so elaborately you have delivered.
No, elaborately kaadandi. My only wish is that we should not get any such occasion where we stand as an accused, because I know how difficult, because I have seen so many members, some of the big firms, and they come and sat opposite to us as an accused. So, I mean, for a moment, I can't think of sitting in the మన తెలుగులో బోన్ లో నుంచున్నా ఉంటారు కదా, సో ఆ సిచ్యువేషన్ ఎవరికి రాకూడదండి. సో లైక్ యూ నీడ్ టు కీప్ యువర్ సెల్ఫ్ 360 degrees విజిలెంట్. ఎవడు కంప్లైంట్ చేస్తాడో తెలియదు ఈ రోజు. It is not your client or your aggrieved person. Even a passerby can throw a paper against you and it will be taken up for a detailed scrutiny. చాలా
వెంకటేశ్వర్లు గారు, చిన్న సజెషన్
చెప్పండి.
మీరు ఈ ఫీల్డ్ లో ఇంతకాలం నుంచి ఉన్నారు కాబట్టి ఈ కొంచెం ఒక రైట్ అప్ లాగా చిన్న దీనికి ఏంటంటే కాంప్లైంట్స్ ఉండాలి అంటే ఆల్రెడీ అందరికి షెడ్యూల్ 1 and 2 తెలిసినా కూడా వాటిలో ఏంటంటే ప్రికాషన్స్ అన్నది ఒక చిన్న పీపీటీ లాగా తయారు చేసి మాకు ఇస్తే టుమారో విల్ బి మోర్ విజిలెంట్, బికాస్ నౌ దిస్ ఈస్ అన్ ఐటీ విజన్. ఒక ఇన్కమ్ ట్యాక్స్ ఆఫీసర్ అంటే అప్పుడు 271(1C) మీకు మొన్న తీసేసారు కాబట్టి సరిపోయింది. ఈ ఆస్క్ మీ వన్ క్వశ్చన్, యూ హ్యావ్ వన్ బై టెక్నికల్ గ్రౌండ్స్ బట్ యాక్యురేట్ పర్టికులర్స్ ఆర్ ఫైలింగ్ ఇన్యాక్యురేట్ పర్టికులర్స్. ఆ విధంగా మీరు గెలవడం బాగోలేదండి అని అన్నాడు. అంటే అప్పుడు నేను అన్నాను, మాకు ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ లో ప్రొఫెషనల్ నెగ్లిజెన్స్ క్లాజ్ 7 ఉందండి, వేర్ if I did not disclose profit or oblique loss, if anything is not struck properly, I will be held negligent. అది ఇప్పటికే ఉంది కదా. So that is professional negligence. There, unless I confirmly disclose whether the company incurs loss or profit by striking of the name, it becomes a negligence as per our schedule 7. When it applies to us, why not it applies to you? So that's why the court held that inaccurate or articulate particulars were struck down by the High Court.
Sir, I can share with you, somebody shared with me the blank tax audit report signed by the chartered accountant. Blank tax audit reports. Right. ఇంకొక కేసు, another member dared to call me and argue. అతను 450 కేసులు సైన్ చేసాడు ట్యాక్స్ ఆడిట్. రైట్. అండ్ అతని ఆఫీస్ అడ్రస్ ఎక్కడో ఉంది. అతను ఎక్కడ ఉంటాడు? హైదరాబాద్ లో ఉంటాడు. అసలు హీ స్టార్టెడ్ ఆర్గ్యూయింగ్, ఇదేంటండి, వాట్ ఈస్ దిస్ నాన్ సెన్స్, అది ఇదండి. ఇంకా నేను ఐ లాస్ట్ మై కూల్. నేను ఐ లిటరల్లీ హ్యాడ్ టు బ్యాంగ్ హిమ్ అనమాట. మీలాంటి వాళ్ళు ఉండే కదండి, ఇలా వస్తుంది 450 కేసులు సైన్ చేసేటప్పుడు మీకు తెలియదా మీ ఎలిజిబిలిటీ ఎంత ఏంటంటే అంటే అది ఏదో మిస్ అయింది. అసలు నేను అప్పుడు ఐ వెంట్ ఆన్ ఛాలెంజింగ్ హిమ్, యు నో వేర్ యువర్ ఆఫీస్ అడ్రస్ ఇదన్నా. ఎక్కడుందండి? ఉందన్నాడు. ఎక్కడున్నారు ఆఫీస్ అడ్రస్? మీ ఆఫీస్ లో ఎవరున్నారు? ఇట్ ఈస్ జస్ట్ అన్ అడ్రస్ అండి, ఫర్ ద సేక్ ఆఫ్ బ్యాంక్ ఆడిట్ హీ గివ్స్ అడ్రస్. ఎట్లా అండి ఇవన్నీ?
అది నాకు కూడా కొన్ని అంటే ఫస్ట్ ఇయర్ లోనే ఇప్పుడు ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ పెట్టినప్పుడు సిబిడి నుంచి ఒక నోటిఫికేషన్ వచ్చింది, యూ హావ్ ఎక్సీడెడ్ ద ట్యాక్స్ ఆడిట్ లిమిట్స్ అని చెప్పేసి వస్తే ఐ సెడ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ ఎ ట్యాక్స్ ఆడిట్ లిమిట్ యాజ్ ఎ ఫర్మ్, it considers all the partners together, and if they don't sign, if I sign on their behalf, it will be considered as a not a gross negligence or I did not violate the provisions. Still that law is still applicable. I think adhe mark chesinattu
adhe mark ledandi adi. So I can, if you are 4 partners, all 4 partners eligible numbers can be signed by one person.
Yes.
But suppose if something goes wrong in this audit signed by you, you will only be held responsible.
Yes,
that is also there.
True. That
so
is
that ceiling is there.
But you have not dealt upon a person who is not a chartered accountant doing all mischief as chartered accountant. What is the position?
అవి కూడా ఉన్నాయండి. ఈవెన్ మీ పక్క కాకినాడలో,
మా ఊళ్ళో అవి జరుగుతున్నాయి ఎక్కువ.
కాకినాడలో ఒక నాన్ మెంబరు was signing left and right చేస్తా ఉన్నాడు. కొన్ని రోజుల తర్వాత one of the ITO got a doubt and he verified his membership number with the help of people like you. He found that it doesn't exist అసలు. అంటే ఇదంతా గత రోజుల్లో జరిగిందిలేండి. ఇప్పుడు యూడిన్లు ఇవన్నీ వచ్చాక now there is no chance for doing that kind of a fraud. This incident happened when I was in the council, exactly sometime in 13-14.
Any technical thing వాళ్ళు కూడా టెక్నికల్ గ్లిచెస్ పట్టుకుంటున్నారు సార్. మనం ఎంత తెలివైనట్టే క్రిమినల్ పీపుల్ ఆర్ మోర్.
సో అలాంటి వాళ్ళని పట్టుకోవాలి మనం అండి. ఇంకో గొప్పతనం ఏంటంటే మన వాళ్ళు, మన మెంబర్లు వీళ్ళ లిమిట్స్ అయిపోయినాయి అని దే గేవ్ సమ్ కేసెస్ టు దట్ జెంటిల్మెన్. రైట్ అండి, వాడికి మెంబర్షిప్ లేదు. వీళ్ళ కేసులు వీళ్ళ ఓవర్ అండ్ అబౌవ్ 45 వాళ్ళకి ఇచ్చారు.
అచ్చా అచ్చా.
సో ఇప్పుడు లక్కీగా డిపార్ట్మెంట్ didn't proceed against those clients where that fraudulent fellow has issued the reports అండి. లేకపోతే అప్పుడు వీడిని ఎత్తుకొచ్చేది కదా, మన మెంబర్ ఎత్తుకొచ్చేది కదా.
అవునవును కరెక్ట్.
So I mean, so this is how we need to protect by these
But
lessons.
one thing, and no doubt, there will be black sheep in everywhere, and the black sheep in chartered accountants are percentage is very, very less. Megata professionals cannot. Very recently, Supreme Court has commented that chartered accountant lawyers may again see how chartered accountants and their regulations are going on, and that's a good comment given by the Supreme Court. I am very happy it came from the Chief Justice itself, I think. సో అంతవరకు బాగా ఏవో కొన్ని పర్సంటేజ్ 1% ఉంటే ఉండొచ్చును కానీ బ్లేమ్ ఎక్కువ ఉంటుంది, యాజ్ ఇఫ్ వీ హ్యావ్ డన్ ఆల్ ద క్రైమ్ బిహైండ్ దమ్. సెకండ్ థింగ్, ది ఫీజ్ ఇట్ సెల్ఫ్ ఈస్ వెరీ లెస్ కంపేర్డ్ టు ది బ్లేమ్ ఇట్స్ ఆల్. రెండోది, ఎనీ ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ కొంచెం ఇన్సూరెన్స్ ఏమైనా ఇలాంటి వాటికి ఏమైనా మనకి ఏదో ఫారెన్ లో కూడా ఇలాంటి టైప్ దీనికి ఏదో
ఇన్సూరెన్స్ అంటే ఇండెమ్నిటీ మీరు అనేది ఇదే ఉంటుందండి, దాన్ని ఏమంటారు ఇండెమ్నిటీ లాగా, ప్రొఫెషనల్ ఇండెమ్నిటీ ఏదో ఉంది కానీ, బట్ మన దేశంలో మనం కేసుకి వెళ్ళి మనం అది క్లెయిమ్ చేసుకునేసరికి పుణ్యకాలం అయిపోతుందండి, మన లైఫ్ లో అవుతుంది, మన లైఫ్ లో అవ్వదు. రెండోది ఫీజు, ఇఫ్ యూ థింక్ ద ఫీ is very less, commensurate is not commensurate with your work, it is in your hands to demonstrate that your work is very high and your fee is very low. See, మన వాళ్ళు ఏం చేస్తున్నారంటే డాక్యుమెంటేషన్ చేయటం లేదండి. Let me talk on the tax audits particular గా. Most of the people, they don't have an appointment letter. అపాయింట్మెంట్ లెటర్ లేకుండా ఎలా చేస్తామండి మనం? అపాయింట్మెంట్ లెటర్ ఉండాలి, ఎంగేజ్మెంట్ లెటర్ ఉండాలి, కన్ఫర్మేషన్ ఉండాలి, ఏముండదు. రేపు పొద్దున ఏదన్నా ఒక కేసు వచ్చింది అనుకోండి,
అక్టోబర్ 25 నుంచి రావడం మొదలు, సెప్టెంబర్ 25 నుంచి వస్తారండి,
జీరో డాక్యుమెంటేషన్. And they immediately rush to people like me, వచ్చి సార్ ఇదేంటండి ఇట్లా వచ్చింది అట్లా వచ్చింది అంటే ఏం చేస్తామండి? నేను ఒక బ్యాలెన్స్ షీట్ చూసాను కార్పొరేట్ ది, 100 మిస్టేక్స్ ఉన్నాయండి, 100 మినిమం. అండ్ స్టిల్ ఈ వెహిమెంట్లీ ఆర్గ్యూస్, ఏంటండి ఇవన్నీ ఎక్కడ చూస్తామండి, చిన్న చిన్నవి అంటారు, ఏం చెప్తామండి?
గ్రాస్ నెగ్లిజెన్స్ యాక్సెప్ట్ చేయకూడదు.
There is no shortcut method if you want to be in practice of attest function. Follow the rules, document the records, and sign the balance sheet. You don't have.
I want to say there is an edge between legality and morality.
I think
sometimes
Sridhar
morality
has a point.
May not be moral, but if it should be legal, then it's enough.
Yes, Sridhar has a point. Let us hear him.
Yes.
Mic on చేయండి.
Sir, sorry to interrupt.
చెప్పండి.
Yeah. యాక్చువల్ గా ఇక్కడ మా వైజాగ్ రీజియన్ లో కొంతమంది స్మాల్ అండ్ మీడియం బిజినెస్ పీపుల్ ఉంటారు. వాళ్ళు జిఎస్టీ రిజిస్ట్రేషన్ ఉంటుంది, వాళ్ళకి ఐటీ రిటర్న్స్ కూడా ఫైల్ చేయాలి. జిఎస్టీ ఏమో నిల్ రిటర్న్స్ ఫైల్ చేస్తుంటారు, ఐటీ రిటర్న్ లో టర్న్ ఓవర్ చూపించమంటారు. ఓకే, ఈ సినారియోలో మనం అది ట్యాక్స్ ఆడిట్ కేసు కాదు, అది నిల్ టర్న్ ఓవర్ యాజ్ పర్ జిఎస్టీ రిటర్న్స్, వేరాజ్ ఇన్ ద ఇన్కమ్ ట్యాక్స్ రిటర్న్స్ సమ్ టర్న్ ఓవర్ 10 lakhs 20 lakhs టర్న్ ఓవర్ ఇస్ బీయింగ్ షోన్. ఈ సినారియోలో రిటర్న్ ప్రిపేర్ చేసినందుకు చార్టర్డ్ అకౌంటెంట్ ఏమైనా can they hold responsible?
Yeah, good question. And మీరు only thing is you don't give your membership number anywhere.
Sir.
Right. And attest function ఏం audit report లో ఏం ఇవ్వబాకండి.
అదే.
Even if you are preparing or compiling the statements, sir, you don't sign anywhere that they are true or correct. And don't upload them from your system, because GST people knew from which ID the document has been uploaded.
IP number.
IP number.
IP address, yes sir.
So ee jagrattalu teeskondi. But also tell the client that now there is a 360-degree surveillance data is there with the income tax department. In my own case, I'll tell you one small example. In 2016-17, one of my own small private limited company is doing electricity board work. So our work చేసినప్పుడు మేము turnover gross income was 25 lakhs, and as per our accounting policy, we have shown the gross including service tax in the P&L account of financial statement. బట్ జిఎస్టీలో ఏంటంటే బేసిక్ అమౌంట్ ట్యాక్స్ వేసి రిటర్న్స్ ఫైల్ చేసాం. సో 2016-17 ఇది. 21 we have received a notice from the service tax department saying that your IT return shows 29 lakhs gross income. Your GST return shows 25 lakhs. So there is a suppression of GST turnover in GST returns by 4 lakhs అని. నేను వాడికి 4 పేజీల లెటర్ రాసి, బాబు ఇది అకౌంటింగ్ పాలసీలో రాసాం అక్కడ. Though it is a small private limited company, for as a matter of clarity, we have written an accounting policy that income includes GST, ST or whatever it is అని వాడికి ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేస్తే వాడు దాన్ని 1 year తర్వాత మళ్ళీ వాళ్ళు నోటీస్ ఇచ్చి పర్సనల్ హియరింగ్ రమ్మన్నాడు. సో యూ ఆల్సో టెల్ ద క్లయింట్, బట్ దిస్ విల్ నాట్ లాస్ట్ లాంగ్ బాబు, బికాస్ బోత్ ద డిపార్ట్మెంట్స్ ఆర్ షేరింగ్ ద డేటా అండి. మీరు అక్కడ జీరో రిటర్న్ ఫైల్ చేసి, ఇప్పుడు టుడే జిఎస్టీ ఈస్ దేర్ ఫర్ ఎవ్రీథింగ్. ఇఫ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ ఎ మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చర్డ్ ప్రోడక్ట్, there is a GST. If it is a service, there is a GST. So he can't escape from GST. రేపు నోటీస్ వచ్చింది అనుకోండి, వాడి ఇది మొత్తం వాడి తడిసి మోపిడి అవుతుంది. అది చెప్పండి మీరు. డోంట్ ఎంకరేజ్ దిస్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్
చేయట్లేదు. వాట్ వి ఆన్ టాప్ ఆఫ్ దట్ నేను ఒక ఎల్ఓఆర్ తీసుకుంటున్నాం వాళ్ళ దగ్గర. అంటే ఇట్స్ డేటా ఇస్ బీయింగ్ ప్రిపేర్డ్, కంపైల్డ్ బేస్డ్ ఆన్
ఏం చేసినా అండి. నేను ఇంకొక ఎగ్జాంపుల్ చెప్పిన. ఎగ్జాక్ట్ 6 months 8 months బ్యాక్ ఒక కార్పొరేట్ మీద రైడ్ అయింది జిఎస్టీ డిపార్ట్మెంట్ వాళ్ళు. కార్పొరేట్, ఇట్స్ ఎ బిగ్ కార్పొరేట్ ఓన్డ్ బై సమ్ వెరీ బిగ్ పీపుల్. కార్పొరేట్ మీద రైడ్ అయ్యి జిఎస్టీ ఇంటెలిజెన్స్ వాళ్ళు రైడ్ చేస్తే, అక్కడ సిఎఫ్ఓని వాళ్ళు ఇంట్రాగేట్ చేస్తే, సిఎఫ్ఓ లెండ్ సెడ్ జేవి అండ్ XYZ have given అడ్వైజరీ రోల్ అన్నారు. ఆ జేవి అనే అతను వాళ్ళ ఆడిటర్ కాదు, వాళ్ళ కన్సల్టెంట్ కాదు. he was not paid any remuneration, but it is informally known that they were consulting him. But and these fellows have immediately picked him also, GST people. Okay. And they made this auditor to sit with them for 2 days, 48 hours. They detained him and detained Jesse. They got whatever they dictated. The order may sign in arrest chestam annaru. Okay. So absolutely no role to him in anywhere in any record. And
in the absence of any
written opinion, he was not on the rolls of the company, either as a consultant or as an advisor. But just with the sheer word from the CFO that we take advices from so and so, and దాని మీద తీసుకొని ఇతన్ని 2 days detain చేసి, ultimately they got whatever they wanted, order రాయించుకొని. In the meanwhile, they pursued with the client and got a overnight payment of 5 crores of ITC, which they were not paying. ఇదంతా చేసిన తర్వాత ఈ ఆడిటర్ చెప్పారు, నిన్నేం చేయంలేండి, we just write this sentence and తీసుకొని నెక్స్ట్ డే ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ కంప్లైంట్ చేశారు. నెక్స్ట్ డే అండి, ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ వారం రోజుల లోపల అతనికి he got the notice. So this is how some of the government officials are working. So let us be careful in our own way. మీరు దగ్గర మీరు ఎల్ఓఆర్లు, వర్క్ ఆర్డర్లు, ఎంగేజ్మెంట్ లెటర్లు ఏమి తీసుకున్నా, indirectly you are the one who have encouraged him to do this kind of cheating అనేది వస్తుందండి. అంటే not that every case will come. మీకు ఇంకొక ఎగ్జాంపుల్ కూడా చెప్తా. ఇంకొక టౌన్ లో అయితే ఒక పర్టికులర్ ఇండస్ట్రీ వాళ్ళు బ్యాంకర్స్ దే ఎక్స్టెండ్ క్రెడిట్ ఫెసిలిటీస్ బియాండ్ వాట్ ఈస్ షోన్ ఇన్ ద బుక్ లిమిట్స్. బుక్ లో స్టాక్ ఏమో 10 రూపాయలు ఉంటుంది, బట్ లోన్ 100 రూపాయల లాగా ఇచ్చున్నారు. ఏం చేస్తున్నారంటే బ్యాంకర్సే దే క్రియేటెడ్ ఏ వన్ సెపరేట్ CA who creates books for all these industry people, and he issues another set of financial statements to the bankers. They are keeping it on their file, and bankers they know the inner strength of that. But if suppose one account becomes NPA, then the auditor is out. So we are in a very vulnerable situation, and please don't take it easily. And నాకు ఇది ఉంది కదా, అది ఉంది కదా అనే కంపారిజన్ ఇవి పెట్టుకోమాకండి.
On the other hand, informally on the other hand, if some other income, and if you show that income from other sources లోని ఏదైనా చూపిస్తే అప్పుడు మనకి ఏమైనా ప్రాబ్లం ఉంటుందా?
ఇన్కమ్ ఫ్రమ్ అదర్ సోర్సెస్
which is not a business income, say some lease rental income or whatever, like which doesn't fit into
No,
this.
if it is really, if you have say some building property undanukondi, you are allowed
Sir.
to acquire a building property and rent it out and show it as income. Ante meer cheppedi ante, if I understand rightly, if your professional income is less than your other income, will there be any problem anedi okati question adagachu meeru. Suppose your professional income is only say net income 10 lakhs undi, but your rental income no other sources income 50 lakhs undanukondi. So institute may say you are seems to be engaged in other business than the profession and anatsu ane oka idi undachu meeku, but you can justify that income from investments or properties etc. You need not spend any time, you buy a building and let it out,
Rent it out.
so adi pettukochu. Alage other sources lo, suppose you are on the boards of a few companies as an independent director and you get a good amount of fee, including some of the big corporates, they pay commission also to the independent directors. So in all such situations, you can defend your case. It doesn't mean that your professional income should be always higher than your other income.
Sir, and supplementing this question, actually, having acquired the qualification examination to be an independent director on the board, adi mano can we intimate to the few private limited companies that I am being a qualified independent director, you can enroll, or if you are looking for, you can call for an appointment. Ala manam chepte, will it come for unsolicited publicity, something like that?
అంటే అసలు ఆ ఛాన్స్ లేదండి మీకు. మీరు యూ కాంట్ సొలిసిట్ బై వే ఆఫ్ రైటింగ్ లెటర్స్ దట్ ఐఎమ్ అన్ ఇండిపెండెంట్ ఎలిజిబుల్ ఇండిపెండెంట్ డైరెక్టర్ ఎంపానల్డ్ విత్ కార్పొరేట్ అఫైర్స్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ అనేది రాసే సీన్ లేదు. మీరు ఇన్ఫార్మల్ గా చెప్పుకోవచ్చు కానీ, బట్ ఇట్స్ నాట్ డెఫినెట్లీ వర్త్ రైటింగ్ సచ్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ లెటర్స్.
ఓకే,
ఇప్పుడు అది కూడా తీసేసారు మనకి. యూ నీడ్ నాట్ పాస్ ది ఇండిపెండెంట్ డైరెక్టర్స్ ఎగ్జామ్. Now chartered accountants with I think some 10-15 years of standing, they are allowed as empanelment. Aslu independence ఎక్కడ ఉంటుందండి? కార్పొరేట్స్ ఎవరు తీసుకున్నా they only take the dependent directors. But don't write in your any appeals like that. ఎవరో ఒకరు మీ బ్రదర్స్ కంప్లైంట్ చేయొచ్చు, ఈయన ఈ సొలిసిటింగ్ ప్రొఫెషనల్ అసైన్మెంట్స్ లైక్ దిస్ అని. అఫ్ కోర్స్ నేను కూడా పాస్ అయ్యాను కోవిడ్ ఫస్ట్ ఇయర్ లో, నేను కూడా పాస్ అయ్యాను ఇండిపెండెంట్ డైరెక్టర్ ఎగ్జామ్ అని. బట్ ఐ నెవర్ గాట్ ఏ సింగిల్ అపాయింట్మెంట్ బేస్డ్ ఆన్ దట్ క్వాలిఫికేషన్ ఆర్ ఎలిజిబిలిటీ.
ఓకే,
చలపతిరావు గారు ఎలా ఉన్నారు?
చలపతిరావు గారు అన్మ్యూట్ చేయండి. చలపతిరావు గారు అన్మ్యూట్ చేయండి సార్.
అన్మ్యూట్ చేయండి అండి.
అన్మ్యూట్ చలపతి గారు,
అన్మ్యూట్ చేయండి.
సూపర్ సార్.
ఓకే, గుడ్.
ప్రమాణంగా ఉన్నా సార్. ఒక క్వశ్చన్ అడిగాను సార్ చాట్ బాక్స్ లో.
నేను చూడలేదు, సారీ నేను చూడలేదండి.
అది కన్సల్టెన్సీ
లేదే.
ఒకటి ఉంది సార్, ఉంది. లైక్
కన్సల్టెన్సీ సర్వీసెస్ రెండర్డ్ బై previous auditor is incoming auditor expected to take no objection from previous auditor. Definitely not required andy.
Okay.
Suppose if you are filing the return of income of X and somebody else is taking over from you this year, he need not write to you. Okay. Even tax representation only it is applicable for attestation functions, audits essentially, not even for certificates. Suppose if you are issuing now and then some certificates to a company where you are not the auditor, sudden ga vallu mimmalni odilesi inkokarini pattukunnaru anukondi, then also no need to write to the previous auditor. Only where you are auditor you have to write to the previous auditor.
Okay.
Charitable or anything, but yes. Please make sure andi nenaithe bank statutory audit branches kuda rastunnanu. And I'm insisting the banks to communicate the previous auditor's name and address along with the appointment letter itself. Most of the banks are communicating who is the previous auditor of that branch.
Yes.
And in all such situations, at least though as a matter of fact, you send a mail and request them to confirm it by mail.
Yes.
Because after seeing the attitude of some of our members, I don't want to suggest, don't worry, take it easy, and I don't want to tell. And
correct.
you comply with the rule. Don't take any chances. ఇన్ఫాక్ట్ నేనే పర్సూ చేసే ఒక మెంబర్ని, ఎందుకయ్యా ఇలాంటి పనులు చేస్తారంటే, మీకు తెలియదండి భలే వాళ్ళండి, వాడు అది చేస్తున్నాడు ఇది చేస్తున్నాడు అంటున్నారు. సో అవి చూసినప్పుడు బాధ వేస్తుంది, బట్ వాట్ టు డూ, బికాస్ ద రూల్ ఈస్ ద రూల్. రూల్ డజంట్ సీ ది అండ్ టచ్ యూ అండ్ సీ యువర్ హార్ట్ బీటింగ్. రూల్ ఈస్ వెరీ రూల్, అంతే.
ట్రూ. థ్యాంక్ యూ సార్, మమ్మల్ని గుర్తుపెట్టుకున్నందుకు.
అయ్యో భలే వాళ్ళండి. యు ఆర్ ఆల్, అట్లీస్ట్ those whoever have qualified up to 2016, I think I remember most of the names.
సార్ ఇంకొక డౌట్, బీయింగ్ ఏ చార్టర్డ్ అకౌంటెంట్, మన ట్వీట్స్ కానీ సోషల్ మీడియాలో కానీ అన్పార్లమెంటరీ వర్డ్స్ ఆర్ అబ్యూజివ్ లాంగ్వేజ్ యూజ్ చేస్తే will it come under professional misconduct?
As of now, there is no mechanism in our code of ethics to catch such situations. WhatsApp lo better మీరు, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ నన్నే బ్లేమ్ చేస్తూ పెట్టారు, పంపించిన తర్వాత డిలీట్ కొట్టేశారు అనుకోండి, ఇంకా నేను ఐ హావ్ టు ప్రూవ్ దట్ ఇట్ హెస్ కమ్ ఫ్రమ్ యువర్ ఫోన్ అని నా దగ్గర ఉంటుంది. బట్ దీన్ని ఐ డోంట్ నో హౌ మచ్ కోర్ట్స్ ఎట్సెట్రా విల్ యాక్సెప్ట్, బట్ అంత స్ట్రెచ్ ఎవరు చేయట్లేదు. బట్ వర్క్ సొలిసిట్ చేస్తున్నారు కొంతమంది త్రూ వాట్సాప్.
ఓకే,
నా నోటీస్ కి నాకు 2 SMSలు వచ్చినాయి. ఇక్కడే హైదరాబాద్ లో ఒక ఫర్మ్ నుంచి నాకే వచ్చింది, we provide so and so service, we provide so and so service, you are welcome అని with their name, address, phone number అవన్నీ ఇచ్చి, నేను పొలైట్ గా కాల్ చేసి చెప్పాను, బాబు ఇలాంటివి పంపించద్దు, అందులో ఇంకొక ఆడిటర్లకు మా బొట్టోళ్ళకి పంపిస్తే ఏం వస్తుంది నీకు, కంప్లైంట్లు వస్తాయి, డోంట్ డూ దట్ అని చెప్పా.
అది మన స్టేటస్ లో పెట్టుకోవచ్చు సార్, వాట్సాప్ స్టేటస్ లో, విచ్ కెన్ బి సీన్. అండ్ మన వాట్సాప్ స్టేటస్ లో అంటే వీఆర్ నాట్ సెండింగ్ టు ఎనీబడి, అది మన వాట్సాప్ స్టేటస్ లో పెట్టుకుంటున్నాం. అది
I have not, I can't say that, but
చాలా మంది చేస్తున్నారు సార్. అది అంటే అది
అంటే స్టేటస్ లో పెట్టినా కూడా డైరెక్ట్ గా మనం ఇఫ్ వి స్పీక్ ఫ్రాంక్లీ, ఇట్స్ ఏ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ ఏ రమ్మని పిలవటమే కదా మీరు, యు ఆర్ సొలిసిటింగ్ ద
ఇండైరెక్ట్లీ యు ఆర్ సొలిసిటింగ్.
అదే సార్, అదే నేను అంటే అదే అంటున్నా సార్, ఐఎమ్ ఆస్కింగ్, అదే అడుగుతున్నా సార్.
ఇట్ అమౌంట్స్ టు సొలిసిటింగ్. ఇప్పుడు నేను ఇక్కడ ఐఎమ్ అవైలబుల్ అని బోర్డు పెట్టుకున్నాను అనుకోండి, అంటే పిలిచినట్టే కదా.
అదే సార్, అంటే ఇప్పుడు సపోజ్ నేను నా స్టేటస్ లో పెట్టాను, నేను డ్యూ డేట్ ఫర్ ఫైలింగ్ ఐటీ 31st July, ఫైల్ యువర్ రిటర్న్స్, రష్ లాస్ట్, ఐ మీన్ అవాయిడ్ ది లాస్ట్ మినిట్ రష్ అని చెప్పేసి డిపార్ట్మెంట్ ఇచ్చినటువంటి ఇమేజ్ మనం షేర్ చేసాం.
ఇట్స్ లైక్ ఏ జనరల్ అడ్వైజ్ లాగా ఉంది మీరు చెప్పేది.
అదే సార్, అదే మనకి అంతేగాని
డిపార్ట్మెంట్ కూడా రోజు పంపిస్తుంది మనకి మెసేజ్లు.
ఎస్ సార్, ఎస్ అదే.
నాలెడ్జ్ షేరింగ్ వరకు ఓకే అనుకుంటున్నాను సార్. నాలెడ్జ్ షేరింగ్ లాగా అంటే ఇప్పుడు డ్యూ డేట్స్ లేదా TDS రేట్స్ అట్లా పెడుతున్నారు, GST రేట్స్ ఇట్లా మారుతున్నాయి, GST నోటిఫికేషన్ వచ్చింది అనేది స్టేటస్ లో పెట్టుకుంటున్నారు. ఐ థింక్ నాలెడ్జ్ షేరింగ్, ఐ థింక్ ఇట్ ఇస్
వరకు పెట్టొచ్చండి. ఇండికేటింగ్ ద డ్యూ డేట్ ఆర్ అవాయిడ్ పెనాల్టీస్ ఫర్ డిలే ఫైలింగ్, అలాంటి జనరల్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ పెడితే మిమ్మల్ని ఎవరు, వన్ కెనాట్ ఫైండ్ ఫాల్ట్ విత్ యూ, you are doing a good job for the society అని చెప్పొచ్చు మీరు కూడా. You can also defend yourself. You are not, so long as you don't solicit, please come to me for any work అనేది పెట్టకుండా మీరు పెట్టొచ్చు. ఇప్పుడు కొంతమంది రాస్తుంటారండి, ఫర్ యువర్ ట్యాక్స్ రిటర్న్ వర్క్, పాన్ నంబర్లు అది ఇది మేము చేస్తామని. దే ఆర్ నాట్ సిఎస్, మోస్ట్లీ సిఎస్ ఎవరు రాయరు అట్లా. అలా లేకుండా మీరు చెప్పిన ఈ లైన్స్ లో జస్ట్ లైక్ డిపార్ట్మెంట్, ఫైల్ యువర్ రిటర్న్ ఇన్ టైమ్, అవాయిడ్ పెనాల్టీస్, అలాంటివి పెట్టచ్చు, స్టేటస్ లో పెట్టుకోవచ్చు.
ఇనిషియల్లీ మీరు చెప్పారు, ఎప్పుడైనా 5 minutes బ్రేక్ మమ్మల్ని తీసుకోమన్నారు, బట్ యువర్ అన్స్టాపబుల్, ఎక్కడ బ్రేక్ లేకుండా కంటిన్యూ ద సెషన్ సార్, వెరీ ఎనర్జెటిక్.
నో ఇట్స్ ఆల్ మాట్లాడి వచ్చింది, అట్లా వచ్చేస్తుందండి. ఇంకా ఎనీథింగ్ లిటిల్ షేరింగ్ అండి బెస్ట్, బికాజ్ నేను ఐ హావ్ సీన్ 5 years లో అబౌట్ 500 కేసెస్ చూసుంటానండి యావరేజ్ గా. ప్లస్ అప్లేట్ అథారిటీలో ఒక 100 చూశాను. అండ్ శ్రీరామ్ గారు బాగున్నారా?
సార్ బాగున్నా సార్, ఫైన్ సార్.
ఎలా ఉన్నారు?
బాగున్నావు సార్. మీరు?
శ్రీకాకుళం వరదల్లో ఉందా, బాగానే ఉందా?
పర్వాలేదు సార్, శ్రీకాకుళం వరదలేం లేవు.
లేదా?
లేదు.
ఓకే, గుడ్.
థ్యాంక్ యూ సార్. సార్,
సో అన్ని కేసులు చూశాక అండ్ కొన్ని కేసుల్లో నిజంగా ఐ యూస్ టు ఫీల్ బ్యాడ్ ఫర్ ది మెంబర్ హూ వాజ్ ఫేసింగ్ ఇట్ అండి. అసలు మీకు ఇవాళ బోత్ ద స్టేట్స్ లో ఒక మంచి ఎఫిషియెంట్ గా రిప్రజెంట్ చేసే అడ్వకేట్ కూడా లేరండి డిసిప్లినరీ కేసెస్. సో ఈవెన్ స్మాల్ మ్యాటర్స్ కూడా we don't have a good advocate అండి. వన్స్ ఇఫ్ యూ గెట్ ఎ నోటీస్ దెన్ యువర్ దాన్ని ఏమంటారు టెన్షన్ స్టార్ట్ అవుతుందండి. అంటే కొంతమంది నేను ఎంత ధైర్యం చెప్పినా ఇట్స్ మనకి ఏం స్కార్ లేకుండా 30 ఏళ్ళు ఉండి సడన్ గా ఈవెన్ దో one may not be punished but even a small reprimand అన్నా కూడా it is nothing but a punishment kind అండి. సో ఆ సిచ్యువేషన్ రాకుండా ఉంటే మంచిదని. సో ఐఎమ్ ట్రైంగ్ టు ఎడ్యుకేట్ యాజ్ మెనీ యాజ్ పాసిబుల్. సో ఇట్ ఈస్ ఫర్ ద మెంబర్స్ టు డిసైడ్ అండ్ గో ఫార్వర్డ్ అండి. బట్ కంప్లైంట్స్ అయితే బాగా పెరుగుతున్నాయండి, బాగా పెరుగుతున్నాయి. ఇట్స్ నాట్ ఓన్లీ ఇన్ కార్పొరేట్ ఆడిట్స్, ఈవెన్ నాన్ కార్పొరేట్ ఆడిట్స్ లో కూడా వస్తున్నాయి కంప్లైంట్స్. బ్యాంక్ బ్రాంచ్ ఆడిట్ల మీద కూడా కంప్లైంట్స్ వస్తున్నాయండి. కంకరెంట్ ఆడిట్స్ ఉన్న చోట నంబర్ ఆఫ్ కంప్లైంట్స్ వస్తున్నాయి. సో పర్టికులర్లీ మఫ్సల్ డిస్ట్రిక్ట్స్ లో చేసే కంకరెంట్ ఆడిటర్స్ షుడ్ బి వెరీ కేర్ఫుల్ అండి.
బ్యాంకర్సే కంప్లైంట్ ఇస్తారు.
స్టాఫ్ చేసే ఫ్రాడ్లకు కూడా కంకరెంట్ ఆడిటర్ దే ఆర్ హోల్డింగ్ రెస్పాన్సిబుల్ అండి. నిన్న ఒక మెంబర్ ఫోన్ చేశాడు, జస్ట్ 2 days బ్యాక్ అండి. ఇతను కంకరెంట్ ఆడిట్ చేస్తున్నాడు, ఏదో చేసుకుంటూ వెళ్ళిపోయాడు. బట్ వన్ ఆఫ్ ది స్టాఫ్ మెంబర్ వర్కింగ్ ఇన్ దట్ బ్రాంచ్, he used the IDs of co-employees and did fraud for about 6 months. Fraud చేశాడండి. వాళ్ళ ఇన్స్పెక్టర్స్ వచ్చి దే ఆర్ బ్రేకింగ్ దేర్ హెడ్స్ టు క్రాక్ దిస్ ఫ్రాడ్. ప్యారలల్ గా ముందు ఇతనికి నోటీస్ ఇచ్చేసారు, వీఆర్ డిస్కంటిన్యూయింగ్ యువర్ సర్వీసెస్ అండ్ ఇఫ్ ఎనీ నెగ్లిజెన్స్ ఈస్ ఫౌండ్ అగెన్స్ట్ యూ, యూ విల్ బి టేకెన్ టు ద ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ ఫర్ నెసరీ యాక్షన్ అని. సరే ఈయన ఏం చెప్తున్నాడంటే, సరే హ్యావ్ యూ వెరిఫైడ్ కంకరెంట్ ఆడిట్ స్కోప్ ప్రకారం అన్ని చేసావా అంటే, సార్ చేయలేదు సార్, రోజు ఓచర్లు మనం ఎక్కడ చూస్తాం సార్, వాళ్ళు పాస్ చేసే ఓచర్లు అంటాడు. సేమ్ ప్రాబ్లం అండి. అండ్ మనం వెళ్ళము, ఎవరో అసిస్టెంట్లు పంపిస్తాం, వాడు సరిగా చేయడు. స్కోప్ ఏమో బోల్డ్ అంత స్కోప్ ఉంది అందులో. ఇప్పుడు ఈ ఎలక్ట్రానిక్ ఫీల్డ్ లో వాసుదేవరావు గారు చెప్తారు, మూర్తి గారు, అసలు ఇది అయ్యే పనేనా అండి? నేను కంకరెంట్ ఆడిట్ ఎవరైనా హెల్ప్ చేయమని అడిగినా కూడా నేను ఐ డిస్కరేజ్ అండి, ప్లీజ్ డోంట్ డూ దిస్ బాబు, యూ విల్ గెట్ అన్నెసరీ కాట్ అని. అండ్ ఫ్రాడ్స్ ఎక్కువ జరుగుతుంది కంకరెంట్ ఆడిట్ ఉండే బ్రాంచ్ లోనే జరుగుతున్నాయి.
మేనేజ్మెంటే కంప్లైంట్ ఇస్తున్నారా?
మేనేజ్మెంట్ ఇక్కడ ఎవడో బ్రాంచ్ స్టాఫ్ చేశారండి, ఫ్రాడ్ చేసాడు. వాడేం చేశాడు, ఈ యూజ్డ్ అనదర్ 4 employees ఐడీస్ వాడి మొత్తం జనరల్ లెడ్జర్ అకౌంట్స్ ద్వారా చేసుకుంటూ వెళ్ళాడు. అసలు వాళ్ళ టెక్నికల్ టీమ్ వచ్చి, ఆ టెక్నికల్ టీమ్ ఆర్ అనేబుల్ టు బ్రేక్ దిస్ ఫ్రాడ్ అండ్ వీడు ఎలా చేసాడు ఇంతదని యాక్చువల్ గా ఆడిటర్ కెనాట్ డిటెక్ట్.
అలాంటివి మనం
ఫస్ట్ మనమే దొరుకుతాం అన్నడికి. యు ఆర్ దేర్ టు వెరిఫై ఆల్ ది ఓచర్స్, డైలీ ఓచర్స్ ఏం చేశారు, మీరు ఎందుకు వెరిఫై చేయలేదంట. ఇతనేమో హీ కాంట్ ప్రూవ్ బికాస్ దేర్ ఇస్ నో వర్కింగ్ పేపర్స్.
అసలు డైలీ ఏం చేశాడు అనేది కూడా రాయించాలి.
ఎవరు చేయరండి, ఇంక్లూడింగ్ మీ వీ కాంట్ మెయింటైన్ సో మచ్ ఆఫ్ వర్కింగ్ పేపర్స్. వాళ్ళు ఇచ్చే 15,000 ఫీజు కి
వర్కౌట్ అవుతుంది. ముఖ్యంగా రిస్క్ ఎక్కువ, వర్కౌట్ అవుతుంది.
కానీ చేయాల్సి వస్తే జిల్లాల్లో చేస్తున్నాము, బట్ ఇక్కడ కూడా చేస్తున్నారండి, చాలా మంది చేస్తున్నారు. బట్ వీ హ్యావ్ టు టేక్ ఇంపార్టెన్స్ ఇచ్చి దానికి డాక్యుమెంటేషన్ అన్ని అన్నా చేసుకోవాలి. ఇప్పుడు కంపెనీ ఆడిట్లో కూడా అండి, చిన్న కంపెనీలు పర్వాలేదు కానీ పెద్ద కంపెనీలు అయితే ఈ నఫ్రా వీళ్ళు లెఫ్ట్ రైట్ చేస్తున్నారు. అన్లెస్ వీ ప్రొడ్యూస్ ది ఆడిట్ ఫైల్ built as per the requirements of standards on auditing, దట్స్ ఆల్. మొన్న ఒక ఆర్డర్ వచ్చింది, అంటే మీరు చదివంటారు ఇది, నఫ్రా నేషనల్ ఫైనాన్షియల్ రిపోర్టింగ్ అథారిటీ which reviews the accounts of all listed companies and companies above certain level. ఒక కంపెనీ, కల్కటా బేస్డ్ కంపెనీ రివ్యూ చేశారు వాళ్ళు, ఆడిటర్ నోటీస్ ఇచ్చారు, సో అండ్ సో మిస్టేక్స్ ఉన్నాయి, వాట్ ఈస్ యువర్ రెస్పాన్స్ అంటే ఆయన ఓపెన్ గా అడ్మిట్ చేసేసాడు, సార్ నేను ఐఎమ్ ప్రొప్రైటర్, ఐ డోంట్ నో ద ఇండేస్ ప్రొవిజన్స్, సో నేను ఐఎమ్ అడ్మిటింగ్ మై మిస్టేక్ అనేసాడు. అది నేషనల్ దీంట్లో వెబ్సైట్ లో పెట్టేశారు. సో చూసే వాళ్ళు ఏమనుకుంటారండి, గవర్నమెంట్ అఫీషియల్స్ ఆర్ అదర్ రెగ్యులేటర్స్ ఆడిటర్లు అందరూ ఇంతే కావాలనుకుంటారు. వాడు యాక్సెప్ట్ చేయకుండా ఉండాలండి, యాక్సెప్ట్ చేసాక సరిగ్గా చేయాలి. ఇవన్నీ కాకపోయినా కనీసం డిఫెన్స్ అన్నా ఉండాలి, అన్ని లేకుండా ఫ్లాట్. అసలు నేను ఐ అగ్రీ దట్ ఐ డోంట్ నో ఎనీథింగ్ అన్నాడు. హి హస్ అడ్మిటెడ్ స్ట్రైట్. సో అలాంటి సిచ్యువేషన్స్ లో మనం ఎంతసేపు డిఫెండ్ చేస్తామండి, మనం అంతా ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ మేము అది చేస్తున్నాం ఇది చేస్తున్నాం. మీకు తెలుసో లేదో, నిన్ననే మన ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ నాన్ కార్పొరేట్ ఎంటిటీస్ కూడా ఒక టెక్నికల్ గైడ్స్ రిలీజ్ చేశారండి. ఫైనాన్షియల్ ఫార్మాట్స్, స్టేట్మెంట్స్ ఫార్మాట్స్ రికమెండ్ చేస్తూ టెక్నికల్ గైడ్. ఇట్స్ నాట్ ఎ గైడెన్స్ నోట్, బట్ యూ కెన్ యూజ్ దట్ ఫార్మాట్స్ అండ్ గైడెన్స్ నోట్ ఫర్ యువర్ గైడెన్స్, బోత్ ఫర్ నాన్ కార్పొరేట్స్ అన్నమాట. ASB డిజైన్ చేసి ఇచ్చారు. అంటే సమ్వేర్ మీకు డౌట్ వచ్చింది అనుకోండి, యూ కెన్ ఆల్వేస్ రెఫర్ టు దట్. బట్ అన్ఫార్చునేట్ గా మన మెంబర్లు, మోస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ద మెంబర్స్, దే డోంట్ రెఫర్ ది ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ పబ్లికేషన్స్.
Even non-corporate entities also have to follow the accounting standards. That is there.
అది అకౌంటింగ్ స్టాండర్డ్స్ అండి, ఫార్మాట్స్ లేవు వాటికి. ఫార్మాట్స్ లేవు. ఇప్పుడు నౌ ద ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ హస్ ప్రిస్క్రైబ్డ్ సజెస్టెడ్ ఫార్మాట్స్ కూడా తీసుకొచ్చారు. అది జస్ట్ నిన్న మొన్న రిలీజ్ చేశాడు.
1 week అయిపోయింది సార్.
అదేలేండి, ఇవాళ నాకు ఏదో మెయిల్ వచ్చింది. అంటే నేనే చూడలేదు, ఎక్కడ చూస్తామండి, రోజు సైట్లు ఓపెన్ చేసి ఎక్కడ చూసే అంత టైం లేదు మనకి. అది చేస్తామా, క్లయింట్ వర్క్ చేస్తామా?
మనం సైన్ చేయకుండా అప్లోడ్ చేసినా మనకి ప్రాబ్లమే కదండి, IP అడ్రస్ బట్టి.
కరెక్టే కదండి. మరి మీ సిస్టమ్ నుంచి వెళ్తే మీరు చేసినట్టు అవుద్ది కదా. మీ జూనియర్, మీ టైపిస్ట్ ఎవరు చేసినా కూడా మీ సిస్టమ్ నుంచి వెళ్ళుద్ది. మరి అది కూడా వీ నీడ్ టు బి కేర్ఫుల్ అండి. అందుకే మీరు యూ షుడ్ నాట్ అలౌ వాట్ ఎవర్ దట్ కమ్స్ అవుట్ ఫ్రమ్ యువర్ సిస్టమ్ నుంచి. ఇదంతా ట్రాక్ అయిపోతుందండి.
ఈ ఫార్మాట్ గురించి మన స్టాఫ్ కూడా మనం ఎడ్యుకేట్ చేయాలి, అది మెయిన్. ఈ ఫార్మాట్ అని చెప్పాలి.
సరే, అంటే దొరకనంత కాలము నడుస్తుంది సార్. పొరపాటున ఎక్కడన్నా దొరికామంటే మాత్రం ఇబ్బంది పడతాము. సో ఆ ఇబ్బంది పడకుండా కొంచెం టైం స్పేర్ చేసి క్లయింట్ కి ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేయండి, బాబు మాకు బోల్డ్ అంత బ్యాకప్ వర్క్ ఉంది, డాక్యుమెంటేషన్ ఇవన్నీ. సో అని మీరే టెంప్లెట్స్ తయారు చేసుకొని అపాయింట్మెంట్ లెటర్లు, ఎంగేజ్మెంట్ లెటర్లు అలాంటివన్నా బేసిక్ వర్క్లు తీసి ఫైల్లో పెట్టుకోండి.
సార్ ఇప్పుడు నాన్ కార్పొరేట్, నాన్ ఆడిట్ అనుకోండి, ITPలు ఫైల్ చేస్తున్నారు, ఆర్ అకౌంటెంట్ సంబడి ఫైల్ చేస్తున్నారు, వాళ్ళకి మరి ఇంకేం ప్రాబ్లం ఉండదు?
వాళ్ళకేం ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ ఉండవు కదండి. యు ఆర్ నాట్ ఇష్యూయింగ్ ఎనీ ఆడిట్ రిపోర్ట్. అట్లాంటి వాళ్ళ మీద అసలు కంప్లైంట్స్ కూడా రావండి. ఫ్యామిలీ డిస్ప్యూట్లు వస్తేనే వస్తాయి. ఫ్యామిలీ డిస్ప్యూట్లలో వస్తాయండి అవి. నాన్ ఆడిట్, నాన్ కార్పొరేట్ అన్నప్పుడు మీ రోల్ ఏమి ఉండదు అసలు.
ఉండదు. వాడు ఈ ఫార్మాట్ లో లేకుండా, అంటే మన ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ గైడెన్స్ ఇచ్చింది కనుక మన ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ గైడెన్స్ మనం ఫాలో అవ్వాలి, వాళ్ళకి లేదు.
మీరు ప్రిపేర్ చేసి ఇచ్చామనే దానికి ఇందాక వారు చెప్పినట్టు you can take a letter from them that you have only prepared based on information and books furnished by them అని మీరు కావాలంటే చిన్న లెటర్ లాంటిదో లేకపోతే సర్టిఫికేట్ లాంటిదో పెట్టుకోవచ్చు. రైట్ సార్, 8 గంటలు అయిపోయింది సార్. చైర్మన్ గారు,
థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్ సార్.
థ్యాంక్ యూ. మీ CPE అవర్స్ మాకు కూడా వస్తాయి. థ్యాంక్ యూ ఫర్ ఇన్వైటింగ్ మీ.
2 years, more than 2 years.
అవునండి, అవును. నేను అసలు వైజాగ్ వచ్చే 3 ఏళ్ళు అయింది. 19 కాదు 20 మార్చ్ లో వచ్చాను లాస్ట్. జస్ట్
అప్పుడు వచ్చాము మేము, క్లాస్ అటెండ్ అయ్యాము.
తర్వాత రాలేదండి అసలు. నేను వస్తాం, ఈ ఇయర్ లో డెఫినెట్ గా వస్తాం చైర్మన్ గారు. వచ్చినప్పుడు ఐ కమ్ అండ్ రిక్వెస్ట్ యూ టు విజిట్, పర్మిట్ మీ టు విజిట్ యువర్ బ్రాంచ్.
It's our pleasure, sir.
Now I request our secretary and vice chairman today, Prashant Kumar Panda, please propose vote of thanks.
Respected Chairman C.A. Vasudevamurthy garu, eminent speaker and past Central Council member C.A. J.Venkateswarlu garu, past chairman, senior members, members of the committee and other professional colleagues. Good evening to all. I am privileged to propose vote of thanks on my own behalf and behalf of the Visakhapatnam branch members. Sir, I convey my heartfelt gratitude for sparing your time and sharing your valuable knowledge for the benefit of our members. In spite of our busy schedule, sir. Sir, we all know and remember your name only whenever we plan and conduct seminar on code of ethics, as we feel you are the guru for code of ethics.
No, you can also ask me to speak on a few other topics like Companies Act. Also, I am reasonably good and I can spend little time.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
also
sir,
on
sure.
the auditing standards, I can speak for some time.
Okay, sir. We utilize your
Sir.
services, sir, definitely.
Your deliberations enlightened our all members and very much useful to all members while they are discharging their different functions of the profession, sir. And your deliberations very useful to our young members and the new members who are came into the practice. And it is extremely covered, sir. Extremely covered all the subject matters, and we are feel very much happy, sir. Thank you very much. And
Thank
I
you.
extend my thanks to all the members for joining and got benefit out of this seminar. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank
I'll
you, sir.
leave the.
Thank you a lot,
Sir.
sir.
Good night, sir.
Sir, thank you, sir.